Good evening and welcome to the August 25th, 2022 meeting of the Cohasset Conservation Commission. I'm Chris McFarland, Chairman of the Commission. We'll be running tonight's meeting. We're operating this meeting using the Zoom platform. At the start of each hearing, we'll elevate applicants to participate. Members of the public wishing to comment shall write their name and address along with comment in the chat box. If you don't include your name or your address, you will not be recognized. Present this evening on behalf of the Conservation Commission are our Conservation Administrator, Angela Giso, and Town Conservation Agent, Charlotte Patel. We'll now take a roll call of commissioners. Please respond by repeating your name and saying present. Will Ashton.
Will Ashton.
Tom Bell.
Tom Bell, present.
Eric Eisenhower.
Eric Eisenhower, present.
Kathy Berrigan.
Kathy Berrigan, present.
And Chris McFarland, present. Not present this evening is Chris McIntyre. So we have a quorum of 5 commissioners this evening, and we'll be taking votes via roll call with each commissioner answering yay, nay, or abstain. Pardon me. Our first hearing this evening is RDA 22-15. I believe I read this into the record last time, but I'm going to do it again just in case. It's 430 Atlantic Avenue. In accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetland Bylaw, and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, the Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, August 25th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on a Zoom platform for a request for determination of applicability 22-15 for the removal of 4 dead or dying trees from the property at 430 Atlantic Avenue by Rustam Davitri.
Hi, Rustam, can you hear us?
Yes, and thank you very much for the invite. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Rustam, would you like me to share my screen of the photos or your RDA to start? What's easier for you?
Yes, please. You are directing everything, so go ahead.
So yeah, the purpose of this RDA, we worked with Rustam to submit an RDA to remove some dead and dying trees around the property. So I can show some photos from the RDA submission. And since a lot of them, I believe it's 3 out of the 4 of them are within the 50-foot buffer along the coastal bank. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And then 1 is near the garage. So I'll scroll down to the photos, but just to show where they are located, you know, on the maps that we had on record, they are along the edge here. So I'll get down to showing some of the pictures of them on site. So there's a couple of them here that have, you know, they're clearly not in good health, and you know, they're right near the water here. And did you have these evaluated by an arborist, Rustam, or was this?
Well, may I say,
Sure.
the purpose of removing these trees was that they were completely dead and they were infested, not only by the carpenter ants, but they were also infested with the poison ivy. Now, during the summer, the poison ivy crept up, and they were next to the wall. And as you can see, there's a wall down there. And we were concerned that it would destroy the wall. And then we would have to go through a whole to-do of redoing the wall, et cetera, et cetera. Now, there's only one that was away from the wall, but that would fall into the ocean, onto the water. And we had one fall into the water with the last storm, and it was a very big hassle to take it out and remove it. And they had to bring a pulley and do all kinds of crazy stuff, and it cost us almost $2,000 to remove a small single tree, just about the size of that.
So these are the 2 that were pictured in the RDA submission. And then the poison ivy and stuff is growing all over them. This is the proximity to the water here, just past the stone wall. So it's these 3 trees that are pictured, and then there's one more that I'll show you in a second photo. That one had already fallen. And then this one right here, which is right along the, as you're coming up the driveway here, Atlantic Ave is pictured in the background here. As you drive up here, there's another stone wall with this tree that's in better health, but I think you had this one evaluated as well, and it was dying. And were you advised to take this one out? This one was close to the garage.
We kept the one in the other side of the wall because we
Yes,
felt,
this one, yeah.
and the other one was on the house. If it fell, it would fall on the house because it was in super proximity to the house. And therefore we said that one should go because that one also was infested, and you could see the infestation in the bark of the tree. That's it. That's where it is.
Mhm.
And this, we've got a photo of it cut, and we can see the infestation inside it.
Okay, so really it's just these three in question here. Is that this is correct, that it's these three trees that you
Yes.
still would like to remove?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm sorry, Charlotte, I thought they were asking for 4.
yeah, was the last one that I just showed, was that one just cut down?
The one by the house was
Yeah.
removed.
This
But-
one, was this one already cut?
Yes, because this one, when they started trimming the tree, they said to me, this doesn't look good at all. We're not even going to climb on it and prune it. We'll just have to remove it.
Oh, okay. So it was removed for safety
Yes.
reasons?
Yes. Right next to the boathouse, there was no chance to keep it either. If we could keep it, in all our 40 years that we've lived in Cohasset, in this house we've lived for 22 years, we've only removed one tree, which was right smack next to our own home about 20 years ago. That's all the removal we've done. And then the one that fell in the water, that's the only other one that we've removed. Nothing else we ever removed out there in all the 22 years. But we did see this other tree we tried to save, and that was infested with carpenter ants. And I think I sent you a photograph of that we can share with the commission to show that there was only like 4 inches of border around the tree that was left. And what we did is we took it down and we left all the bark and everything by there. And you're welcome to come, Charlotte, you're welcome to come and see how we've carefully preserved the bark and kept it right where the tree fell.
Okay.
Do you have any intention to plant any new trees?
I beg your pardon. I would love to plant some new trees. Absolutely. We are tree believers, no doubt about it. But if it does hurt us, then we kind of have no choice but to, do what we have to do.
Mhm.
We will be glad to plant. In fact, we did plant one beech nut tree, which has become nice and big now after 20 years. And it's by the water, it's by the waterfront. We did plant one.
Okay.
But we'd like to plant some more. But I think we should plant them a little away from the water line, because the wetness of the land, that's what creates the fall of the tree. The salt water destroys the tree sometimes if it's not the right kind of tree. So I think we should plant them inward a little bit. But it's all ledge, as you know, Chairman, it's all ledge. So you have to plant it in a place where the roots can infiltrate and grow and not kind of give us another downer.
Any questions from the commission?
I believe you mentioned you had a picture of the cross cut of the tree whereby
Yes.
we could see the interior. May we have that photo, please?
Yes, Mr. Eisenhower, you know who has it is Charlotte.
Yeah, let me see if I can go through.
I
Yeah,
have it,
I'll see.
too, but how would I show it? I also have it in
If
my.
you have it on your phone or your computer, you can share a screen. Every panelist has the ability to do that. If not, I'm looking through your photos here.
I have it. I had to go into the email to get it.
Okay.
it might be easier for you to get it, but I have it. I also have it in my photos.
Mhm.
And I can send it around.
Oh, I think I found it. Hold on. There we go. Sorry, I have a lot of tabs open. About 50 to be exact.
Yes, that's the one. Yes.
Yeah, it looks like some insect's been having a good meal there. Yeah. And those, you see those are carpenter ants, right? Yeah.
Well, we were trying to save this tree and he got up on the tree to trim the branches. And at which point in time he heard some cracking and he came right down and he said, this tree has to go. So sadly, he put a big crowbar inside and showed me how deep it was. And so therefore he took it down.
Yes, some insects been having Thanksgiving for 4 or 5 years, I think.
Well, it was sad
Good
because
meal.
anytime you have this moisture, they sort of make mulch out of it. Yeah. There's about 4 inches all around.
And the type of tree is what?
This tree was an oak tree, I think.
Oak. Okay.
Well, you know, obviously, we hate to see trees come down, but when they become either a safety issue or any other major concern, we certainly don't want you to take the risk. We would, I personally would like to see some trees planted. They function, they have a big function as far as wildlife habitat and along Straits Pond. I'm sure they're being used as perches. So I mean, I'd certainly like to see some trees planted in place of what's being taken out.
Sure.
So, and if we were to approve this, I think that an order of a condition would be that for each tree being taken out, a new tree is planted. That's something that Charlotte could work with you to determine location and just ideally it becomes a perch in the future for birds or whatever, and so some proximity to water, maybe not right on top of it, but certainly close.
Chair, may I say something?
Yes.
The bird population, very sadly, has diminished substantially all along Cohasset. I don't know if you're aware of it, but there used to be morning beautiful talk with the birds. The birds would sing, they'd talk. Now we don't find that. There's very little, only the eagles, the fish eagles are there that look for the bunnies and they look for the squirrels. It's very sad. The eagles are making these noises, but not the nice birds that used to be there. Not seen a blue jay in a long time, a robin in a long time. Very rare now.
The bird population in this area of Massachusetts has declined proportionally to the decline of the insect population.
Oh,
Which has declined proportionally to all the spraying and pesticides and insecticides, which we love to put on our lawn and spray our trees for gypsy moths. So we can only blame ourselves for the problem with the birds. It starts with the insects and it starts with human nature, I'm afraid. So we're at fault. No, we can't blame the birds or anybody else.
how sad.
Great.
How very.
Does anyone else have any thoughts or
Mhm.
conditions that want to put on this? No? Then
I haven't visited the site. Is this a rough area? Is it a wooded sort of area, or is it an area of lawn and usage by people or whatever? Because we normally would ask when these trees fall that we leave them in the buffer zone as habitat for wildlife in the future. Is it possible with these trees?
Well, if we had left them there, the wall would have gone if they fell, because they're right in the midst of the storm that comes across from the ocean. So the what do we call that storm? I forget now.
Hurricane.
No, not the hurricane, the northeaster. Thank you.
Yep.
The northeaster comes right across and the whole wall will get destroyed because we saw one fall very close to the wall that fell in the water and we had to remove that. And thank God it didn't knock the wall down because the wall keeps the brush and the, what do you call it? The poison ivy and the poison oak away from getting into the residential area. Therefore, we really would like the wall protected so that we wouldn't have the tree fall on the wall from the northeaster.
Okay.
But,
I
but
don't
Yeah,
think, I think what he's asking is if these were cut down, could you leave some of the brush?
they're all left there.
They're all-
Whenever we cut a tree down, which we did, we leave the brush, we leave the bark, we leave the stump, everything there.
Okay,
All right.
Problem. We are
Okay.
very well aware of that because Charlotte very kindly told us all the rules and she showed us all the rules, sent us a copy, which was the first time in 40 years that we've been properly organized to know what to do.
okay.
Okay.
Any other comments? I'd like to make a motion then to close the public hearing and to issue a -3 determination with the condition that for each of the 4 trees being removed, that a new tree is planted. Obviously now is not the time to plant these trees. Obviously we are in a bit of a drought. So I'm going to say by next spring, that new trees would be planted. And there'd be 4 of those to replace the 4 that are being removed. And that you would work with Charlotte to get approval for species from the native tree list and location. Do I have a second?
Second.
Having a motion and a second to issue an RDA for 430 Atlantic Avenue, we'll take a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisner, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 5-0-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Justin, have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Charlotte. Thanks for doing all the work for us. Appreciate it.
Likewise, happy to help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Our next hearing this evening is RDA 22-17. I'll read it into the public. I'll read the notice of public hearing for 75 Doan Street. In accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetland Bylaw and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, August 25th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on a Zoom platform for the request for determination of applicability 22-17 for Andrew St. Pierre to remove a chain link fence from the property at 75 Doan Street and install a vinyl fencing.
Hello, how are you?
Evening.
Good evening.
Andrew, would you like me to share my screen with the photos of your RDA, if that's easier?
If you could please, Charlotte, yes.
Sure. Okay, Andrew, would you like to just walk us through your fencing site plan here? We used a
Absolutely.
site plan from a 2014 previous NOI submission so that the commission could see the 100-foot, 50-foot buffer zone, and then Aaron River is just right here. So this property is within the 200, which is just right out here past the property line.
Yeah, and I obviously want to note none of the drawings of the previous RDA, NOI submission had the fire pit near the river and a bunch of clearing down there, which none of which is what we're proposing. If you look where we have drawn in the line on the plans, my contractor who I'm working with on this drew this in. It shows the area which we're proposing to fence off. As is said on the RDA, there's currently, and we have some pictures in here, which I'm sure Charlotte could show after, but currently there's a chain link fence that cuts off the currently cleared area of the yard to only about a quarter of the usable length. So we'd like to remove that chain link fence while also still providing some fencing for the property. Yeah, we're obviously on it. You can see we're outside of the 50-foot resource area, but we are, you know, encroaching. All the area that we're proposing to put the fence is cleared area where we border the Erin River. We're close to the park here, the Wampatuck State Park. So it's a wooded area, but none of what we're doing is proposing to clear any more area.
I can pull up the photos as well.
Thank you. Where you can see in the photos the yellow stakes, that's the proposed fence line. One of the earlier pictures, Charlotte, shows the chain link, where the chain link fence is currently. Yeah, so there it is there. Essentially, the wooded perimeter is what we're proposing to do using a vinyl fence. There's an existing vinyl fence on the south part of the lot, which the previous owner had put in. Essentially, what we're doing is what we're hoping to do is remove the chain link, continue the vinyl fence on right along the wooded area. Yep, right here. That's where the current vinyl fence is. So we would just like to extend that around the perimeter that's cleared around the yard. We also proposed leaving a 6-foot gap, sorry, not 6 foot, a 6-inch gap at the bottom of the fence area for passage of small wildlife. Yeah, the area in which we live, obviously right on Wampatuck State Park, since we moved in here November of 2020, an increase in coyote activity that we can hear going on. Just right around our yard, really. You can hear howls pretty much in our backyard, which, you know, we live on Wampatuck, so that's to be expected.
Charlotte, can you just, for the commission's sake, summarize the portion of the Wetland Protection Act and fences?
Yeah, the installation of fences, at least according to the Wetlands Protection Act, I believe it's 310 CMR 10.02 something -E. It's technically considered a minor activity as long as it doesn't impede wildlife passage. So usually when you have space underneath the fence and or between the fence, like a post and rail fence, or if the fence is low enough where animals can go under it, through it, around it, over it, stuff like that, as long as they have options, it's normally considered a minor activity in the Wetland Protection Act. So obviously building like a 6-foot stone wall doesn't qualify, but usually a fence that has any degree of separation between the bottom of the fence and the ground, or if it was a fence that had separation through it or over it, anywhere where there's an option for animals to kind of get around in one way or another. Usually that's considered mostly minor after I talked to DEP about what they recommended. So they recommended about a 6-inch gap between the bottom of the fence and the ground, and or a fence that was not taller than 2 to 3 feet in height, which most fences are not. So that's why they like that separation between the ground and the fence, and leaving gaps as well. And I believe, Andrew, on your plan, aren't there like some gaps, so that if animals were to go through, that they're not boxed in, obviously? Aren't there like a couple like sections that were there were gaps in between? Or
so it's a picketed fence. So in the front and the back facing towards the Erin River, so that would be the west and the east side of the lot. It's all picketed. So there will be gaps there, and obviously the 6-inch gap in the bottom.
And what's the height of the fence?
Sorry, sir?
The height of the fence?
Okay, so six foot on all except for the very front that connects to the deck there. That would be a 4-foot fence. 4 foot. Sorry, I might have put 6 foot on there. I'm sorry. That we plan on having be a 4 foot picketed fence near the driveway attaching to the deck.
So when you say picket, it's going to match the fence you showed a picture of. Is that correct?
So the fence that is on the north and south side of the
Yes.
property, which is on the south side is where the current vinyl fence exists, as you can see there.
Yeah.
That is a privacy fence, which we're proposing to continue the privacy fence on those sides.
Okay, so the only gap in those fence, the north and the south side will be the bottom gap, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And the picket will be facing the river, and then the shorter fence will be facing up by the house.
Correct, exactly. And that will also be picketed.
So for any larger wildlife, obviously it's a move going around the fence that more than under it or through it. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Tell me,
Any question?
the purpose of the 6 foot height is what? Could you just reiterate that?
It's from what I understand, at least, to be relatively standard fence size. It does exist currently 6 foot. The existing vinyl fence that's on the south side of the property, that's a 6 foot fence there. My understanding of this type of vinyl fencing is that a 6 foot height is relatively a standard height.
My house is surrounded with 4 foot fences.
4 foot.
Yeah, and I can see over it, and it's very
Mhm.
congenial. I can see my neighbors. It doesn't block everything off, and I was just wondering why you chose 6. But that's your decision. All right, it's not really a Concom issue.
Sure.
Tell me, on one of the prior photographs, it looked like the ground was all chewed up. Is there construction, or do you have a project going on there on the land?
So the area directly right, a small shrubby area that was facing towards the back end of the lot towards the river, there was a lot of poison ivy growing right on the ground, which was passable for intents of getting around the yard. We did in Charlotte, when she visited the site, had noticed there was just that dirt area. That's correct. We removed a little bit of the poison ivy and some thorny briars that were growing right there.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
Any conditions? Okay, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and to issue a -2 determination for RDA 22-17 at 75 Doan Street. Do I have a second? Have a motion and a second to issue a -2 determination for RDA 22-17. We'll take a roll call vote. Will Ashton?
Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell?
Tom Bell, aye.
Eric Eisenhower?
Eric Eisenhower, aye.
Kathy Berrigan?
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 5-0-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Our next item this evening is show cause hearing for 37 Stevens Lane. This is in relationship to Stormwater Permit 18-23.
Sorry, give me 1 second. There he is. So we have Mark DeFeo, who's the current owner, and then Jeff Hassett, who's the engineer. Is Jeff Lind on the call, guys? I'm looking for.
Jeff is walking in the door right now.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
There he is. Okay, good timing.
Great. Yeah, so I can start. For the show cause, initially I had received a minor changes request from Jeff to revise the current location of the upper portion of the driveway and install a patio in the backyard, as well as some stone retaining wall in the front yard. And so looking through the plans, I visited the site to kind of get an idea of where everything was. I worked with Jeff Lind on the site. But when I got there, of course, we saw that the patio was already installed. The retaining wall was built and the driveway was a portion of it was complete. It hasn't been paved yet, but the gravel had been put in place. And so, I talked to Jeff about this, just that in the future, we do need to see these changes before they happen. And so that is part of the purpose of the show cause, to kind of discuss those changes in more detail and see if the commission has any additional suggestions. And then upon some review of some of the aerial imagery, I did see some trees at the beginning of the driveway were removed from the original site plan. This is a 2018 stormwater permit. I think it's 18-23. So in response to that, Jeff had revised the plan a little bit further to add some of those trees back. And to he also did the calculations for the revised driveway location, patio, and retaining wall. So Jeff, I don't know if you want to go into a little bit more detail, but that's at least the initial purpose of the show cause. And then obviously discussed the same details with Mark, who's also on the call to answer any questions the commission has.
Okay. Thanks, Charlotte. That's a really good summary. I'll share my screen if you don't mind,
Sure.
and maybe give you a
Absolutely.
little bit more detail. So we permitted this project back in 2018 for the previous owners, and then the DeFeos purchased the property shortly thereafter. In 2021, we submitted a revised plan showing the house footprint that the DeFeos intended to build, which is the one shown here. And the project originally proposed a driveway going more towards the front door with a circular driveway. And what they have built is a singular driveway, eliminating the circle. So when this was brought to our attention, maybe a couple months back, we recommended filing a modification to the stormwater permit. So we did that, and what I've been told is that the contractor didn't think moving the driveway would be a big deal because ultimately it was quite a bit less impervious, eliminating that circle. But it did, however, result in an additional wooded area being cleared right in this corner. So we submitted a revised plan. We updated the stormwater calculations to accommodate that. And also as part of the process, we noted that there was a patio that was under construction. So we added that to the plan. As Charlotte noted, there were additional trees that were removed in this area that were noted to remain. I'm told that there was a meeting with Jeff Summers, the Jeff Lind sitting next to me, and the site contractor, and that Mr. Summers was okay removing those trees, but that they did have to be replaced somewhere on the property. So following up, just this week, we submitted a revised plan where we doubled the number of proposed trees. When this project was originally permitted, the property owners were obligated to plant a minimum of 14 native trees that would be 2.5-inch caliper or greater. So we increased that, we doubled it to 28. So we feel that this project can be approved under a modification. We feel that if we came in with this filing originally, it would have been considered. We've submitted a revised plan. We've submitted revised calculations. It's less impervious and there's more plantings than originally proposed. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Jeff, can I ask you to jump back to the original plan for 1 minute, please?
Yep.
So the one difference I see in these two plans is kind of your, no, maybe it's not. I'm just wondering, are we shedding water in the same general vicinity?
Yeah, we are. So we had a stone trench down the entire down gradient side of the driveway.
Yep.
And then we had a small rain garden in the front corner, as well as 2 dry wells.
Yep.
So both of the dry wells have been installed. The rain garden is built, and the stone trench hasn't gone in yet, but in the very near future it would go in. So, and then in the proposed plan, we have the same thing. The stone trench is moved over, but we have the same rain garden and the 2 dry wells.
But it is a larger. Is it a larger area that's being collected in the rain garden?
Yeah, it is It might be slightly larger because this area of woods was now cleared.
Yeah.
And the driveway was pushed over. But we did update the calculations accordingly with the new watershed areas. And it's still a reduction in the rates and volumes of runoff for the 210 and the 100-year storm events.
Jeff, I see that, what I don't see are any indication that anybody's done any test pits here.
They weren't necessarily required back in 2018. We did do test pits though. They're not shown on this plan, but we did do test pits primarily in the area of the house.
You don't have that plan?
Well, they weren't shown on the plan from 2018. It wasn't required at the time.
But did you say you guys came back in 21 to with this new plan?
In 2021, we filed an administrative modification, and the only change was a different house footprint that was in the exact same location, but a little bit, differently shaped.
And that didn't come before us, I take it. Is that?
No, that was administratively.
So how do you know this is going to work?
So I have been on site.
If you haven't done any soil testing,
I've been on site.
you're running on the USDA soil map, which we all know is not applicable, even though the state allows it. It says right on their website that not to be used for planning purposes. So that's why we want to have soil tests to confirm that indeed the soil properties are well understood before you guys start your design.
We did back in 2018 do quite a few test pits on this property. We had an excavator out there for a day, and I observed the test pits. The main thing we were looking for was how deep. We didn't want to have to blast ledge for the house construction, so we did a number of test pits right here. We've positioned the dry wells in areas where the ground was filled. And I actually observed both of these when they were being constructed, and the contractor did not encounter any ledge or any constraints there. We were also at the time considering building a guest house in this area, or the property owner was considering that. So we did quite a few test pits in this area as well. The material was consistent throughout. This rain garden was recently built. I was on site observing that, and they did not encounter any restrictions in that area either. So at this point, the property has been under construction for 2 years. They've installed utilities, driveways, quite a bit of earthwork going on, and they have not discovered anything that would prohibit this design.
Well, it's good to hear that. It's good to hear that. Of course, we like to know in advance whether your design is going to work. And like I say, it's good that in fact it will, that there is enough permeable material there to actually work. But as I say, we sort of like to know in advance,
Agreed.
Remember, we're working with design, and it's your responsibility to convince us that your design is going to work, because ultimately we are regulating according to performance, not to design. It's not an ideal situation. We look at your designs and we have to decide, does this seem reasonable? Think it's going to work? And so we like to have the best information we can. It's in your interest too. But again, I'm a little disappointed that it sounds like you've actually did quite a few test pits, but I don't see any of them on your plans. So I guess in the future, Jeff, be sure you've got test pits. Show them to us.
Yeah, of course. And I know, especially recently, that has been more of a requirement to see the test pit data on the plans.
Yeah, I'm skeptical about the soils data from USDA, basically because they have this big caveat right on their website about not using soil maps for design purposes.
Yeah, they're great. They're a great resource, but ultimately they're mapping done for the entire country without really any
Right, they
boots on
might
the
have taken,
ground. So they're
might have taken a dozen samples in all of Cohasset, and the rest
Right.
is from air photos.
so
and-
they're
and
they're good.
conjecture.
That's kind of a good starting point, but we typically do test fits, and you can't really rely on USDA data. I
No.
agree.
You can't. That's why we require the test bits.
Any other comments from commissioners?
Nope.
Okay, so any objections to what's being proposed to this was a show cause hearing for alterations. I just want to make sure that that everyone understands what happened and what has been proposed to mitigate that. There's nothing to vote on or anything, so we'll just,
Do we want, this was originally a minor change request, but do we want, since Jeff has basically provided a revised plan and revised calculations with additional changes, do we want to make they didn't specifically request it, but do we want to make an amendment to the stormwater permit, or do you want me to just approve these administratively after show cause discussion?
I would say you would approve them administratively, and I say that because council has said how difficult it is to amend it. So until we have a better grasp of how difficult that actually is, I think you should do it administratively. I think everyone feels comfortable that the trees that are going to go in are sufficient to make up for what's been removed. Jeff, you're not sure, in the new plan, you don't show the actual locations of those, do you?
I do.
No, you do. Okay. All 24 or whatever? Okay.
Correct. 28.
28.
We have trees here along the driveway, trees along the driveway leading up to the garage, few trees in the front yard, trees along the side yard, and then additional trees over here by the rain garden along the property line.
And do you have species on any of them?
So with this stormwater permit, we did not specify the species, only that they were 2.5 inches or greater in caliper and native.
Okay, very good. Okay,
All right.
well, your wrist has been slapped.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go to the back of the class.
Thank you for coming.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Our next hearing this evening is Stormwater Permit 22-16 for 46 Black Rock Road. This was continued, I'm sorry, I don't know the date it was continued from, but this is, like I said, Stormwater Permit 22-16.
Continued from June 16, 22.
Thank you.
Kathy, I was just looking for that. Hi, Tiffany. I see Paul in the audience. I'm trying to promote
Hi.
him.
Well, I'll do the talking this time round. So,
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I am here tonight to request your approval to vote on having a peer review for the stormwater plan. So I do not have anything to share with you in terms of details of plans and changes and follow-ups, which have all been in progress since the last time we met. However, tonight just asking that you would vote to approve moving forward with a peer review.
So Charlotte, I'm going to give a quick synopsis and correct
Sure.
me if I'm wrong, but this came in, this application came in front of us. It's a garage, correct?
So it's a garage and addition, and
garage
with
and
some
addition.
landscaping.
A stormwater application was submitted. The neighbor has had their own engineer take a look at it, who has some concerns. So what as a commission, we're weighing the actual application against the concerns of the neighbor, and the applicant is now coming to us and asking that we vote on having a third-party review take place. They are willing to pay for it, just to kind of put the issue to rest. which I think is
Thank you. Yes.
very, very nice and nice way to deal with the
Yep,
the
nice and
neighbors.
tidy.
Yep. So any comments, questions?
Well, this is about the 3 hickory trees, correct? Is that what the peer review is for?
No.
No, am I in the wrong case?
That was one of the concerns from the neighbors. I think
Oh.
the main concerns, and Tiffany, correct me if I'm wrong here, at least based on the last hearing, we're dealing with a couple different opinions from the applicant's engineer and the neighbor's engineer about the stormwater design in regards to flooding potentially onto the abutting property. So there's definitely concerns, I think, regarding the stormwater design. So with, we have 2 opinions from 2 different professionals. Yeah, I'm not a voting commissioner, but it does seem fair to kind of get a third party involved just to look at it from a different perspective.
If I'm not mistaken, there's question as to whose property the hickory trees are on, correct?
Yes, I think
That's
that's
correct.
one of the concerns as well. I believe there's a note on the site plan about the property line being staked, or there was suggestion to have that done. But I think the main concern with the peer review would also be related to the stormwater design and potential flooding concerns.
But can we do it in such a way that they can confirm the property line as well?
I can look into that. Usually peer reviews, they'll look at all of the documents that were submitted from, the applicant and the abutter, and they'll look at all of that in terms of design, calculations, stormwater compliance, and then they'll offer their own design recommendations. But if we want the peer review to also look at either serving the property themselves or recommending whether or not it should be done and when, we can potentially include those. But normally we try to stay away from, obviously, private property access issues. Usually that has to be worked out, privately between neighbors. But if there's a note on the site plan about any property disputes, it should probably just be worked out. But I'm happy to look into whether or not the peer reviewer would be open to looking into that themselves or giving their opinion or whatever we're kind of concerned about as a commission.
So do we actually need to vote on the third-party review?
At least legal counsel suggested that we do it this way, just to make sure it's clear for public record, especially if there's any, different opinions from commissioners. But that's what she recommended with previous peer reviews, that the commission just votes on it to make sure that's what we want.
Okay. And I will make a motion to close the public hearing and to.
Oh, we kind of have to continue it at least to.
Oh,
yeah, sorry.
So we're going to continue the public hearing. Wait, well, we'll have to do that as well, right? Or we?
Yeah, so we would want to continue the hearing until further, until we get the, the peer review. We can either aim for the next meeting, or depending on when the peer reviewer can turn it around, we might have to go to the other September meeting, but we pretty much just request to continue the public hearing upon receiving a peer review report. And Tiffany, we can either do September 8th or 22nd, or we can shoot for the 8th. And if it's going to take longer, we can always just work it out from there with any additional continuances. So for timeline, we'll try to get it turned around as quickly as we can, but usually we would continue the public hearing until we get the peer review, and then we can.
We have to give it a date, so we're going to say September 8th. We're going to continue.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
And we'll take a vote on having a third-party review of the stormwater application. Take a vote. Will Ashton? There was an aye.
Yes, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisner, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 5-0-0 to have a third-party review.
Thanks, Tiffany and Paul. I'll work on that. Keep you guys posted.
Yep. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay. Our next item this evening is show cause hearing for 609 Jerusalem Road. This is attached to NOI 21-31 and Stormwater Permit 21-36.
Hi, Sandra, can you hear us? You're muted.
Sorry, there you go.
Hi.
Hi.
I think,
Hey.
is Brendan in the audience as well? I think was Brendan from Paragon.
No, I believe it's just me tonight.
Sorry.
No.
Sorry. I might be mixing up names in my head. Well, thank you. Thank you, Chandra, for joining us. I'll just start. For this one, this was kind of two reports. So one, I drove by Jerusalem Road. I did see, some loam being brought in on the property. I didn't see a DEP sign, and I got a call around the same time from an abutter who expressed the same concerns. So I checked the site. And at least looking initially on the site, there were no erosion controls, and at least some of the work initially had seemed to occur past previously permitted. I worked with Paragon and Chandra to kind of just temporarily stop the work for now. The loam was being brought in to bring back the disturbed lawn area that had occurred as part of the portion of the house, and the decking was removed and replaced as part of the order of conditions. This is an order of conditions and a stormwater permit that we issued 2021, I believe. And so since then, Chandra has worked with the landscapers to put the erosion barrier back where it's supposed to go, and there's a DEP sign now posted. And then just one of the other notes for the order of conditions was I hadn't set up a pre-construction meeting, so that's normally standard for orders of conditions. So everyone's kind of aware of that now, which is good. And I guess, Chandra, do you have anything to add in terms of the work that was being done here? And do you have any other updates for us? One of my other notes was just the stabilized construction entrance from the site plan. But other than that, I think you did already address a lot of the concerns that I had in the cease and desist letter.
Yep. Well, thank you, Charlotte, and thanks for the help on all this with everybody, it seems. Yeah, I hope we've addressed, I think most of these were sort of honest miscommunications. We put the erosion barrier back up. I do apologize, like I was on vacation all of the time that I had been a part of the project, it was there. So that's been reinstalled. We made the sign visible from the road. The stabilized construction entrance is back. So the loam that was being brought in is to reseed the area that was disturbed from the excavator. So we built a dry well. It's kind of where these kayaks, it's on the plan, but it's a little bit to the left. Well, sorry, on my left, but that's where the dry well was dug, and it was pretty big. So it just, the loam, they've since moved it, worked with Charlotte to move it up from that picture area to a different area, but the loam, we weren't changing any grades. Everything's been built to plan. Just this, when this work was being done, the barrier was removed, but the loam, like there's no grading difference. It's just to reseed the areas that were disturbed during construction. So I'm happy to answer any questions or.
Charlotte, a question for you.
Yes.
In the original order of conditions, we permitted, because this is mostly in the 50-foot area, 50-foot buffer zone, I would assume. There seems to be a lot of loam and foreign material being brought in.
Mhm.
This is all permitted? That was part of the plan? Charlotte?
Sure. I was actually going to pull up the plan for reference too. So we had permitted a little bit of disturbance past the 50-foot buffer here. So this is Straits Pond up at the stone wall here. So the erosion barrier in red outlines the limit of work. So for the most part, there was not really any work occurring in the 50-foot buffer other than just probably some temporary construction disturbance. So this was the site plan that we had permitted for the deck, the removal of the existing deck and replacement with a new one. There's eventually going to be a sport court here. And then Chandra, did you mention a drywall system was put in right in front here?
It's on the plan. If you go just a little bit past,
Sure.
Yeah, it's there.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I was missing it here. Yeah. So yeah, the work for the most part was not in the 50-foot buffer.
I hear what you're saying. I then recall the photograph, and it seemed to me that the work there was a lot of work fairly close to the edge of Straits Pond. Am I wrong? Can I see the photograph again, please?
Sure, yeah. I was definitely a little confused about that as well. It did look
That-
closer than 50
That looks
feet.
very close to me.
Yeah.
You know, it looks to me like we're gone well beyond the 50-foot buffer line there. But
Mhm.
if you tell me, Charlotte, you've measured it and I'm wrong, I accept that.
No, I have not measured it. I did have that question as well. I know there's a little bit of disturbance past the 50-foot buffer, at least where that, where the loam pile is, but for the most part, the work was below the 50-foot buffer. And I guess, Chandra, was this mostly just from vehicles kind of?
Yeah, it just was to
Okay.
get, so between, you can't really see it in the picture, but the, beyond the deck is the garage. There's just a little walkway
Okay,
to get to the backyard. So
Right.
the trucks just use this area around the deck
Yeah.
step to get to
Mhm.
that patio area that they were working,
Mhm.
I guess.
Sandra,
So-
you are very lucky because I can cite a number of projects we would not allow that to happen. We would not allow heavy equipment to venture into the 50-foot buffer zone. Apparently we did on this project, so you consider yourself lucky, all right? We require in the past this to be brought in with manual equipment, various things, but certainly not heavy equipment in the 50-foot buffer zone, particularly close to a body of water like that. But apparently we did, so that's it, Charlotte.
Yeah, we didn't have a condition about that. And then kind of looking at this barrier again, sometimes where we put the barrier might be a little bit unrealistic on any types of equipment, but yes, Eric, you are correct that we normally don't allow equipment in the 50-foot buffer, but there was no condition for this project. There is a condition on administratively updating the landscaping plan to have all native species in the 100-foot buffer for the most part, but other than that, we didn't have a condition for that. And it seems like the area here was mostly just temporarily disturbed, and it'll be reloamed and seeded from, grass, like from the original conditions.
The only thing I'm gonna add is we're in the middle of a drought. You're not gonna get grass out there for a
Yeah,
long
there-
time.
Yeah,
So make sure those erosion controls stay up for the
Yeah,
the
that's
remainder of
fine.
the year.
And that's what David said too from Paragon, that,
oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, David from Paragon, sorry. I'm mixing up my names here.
we'll do that when we have water.
Okay.
And I'll get you the same with plants. We'll do
Mhm.
it when we have water.
Next time, Chandra, we expect wheelbarrows and not mechanized heavy.
There won't be a next time. I'm done. This is my,
Okay,
I'm gonna live here
all right.
forever and this is it. This is my
Okay.
project, so
This is
I'm
your last
done.
project? Okay, well,
It
good luck to you. Wherever you're off to, good luck.
Thank you.
So Chandra, are you the landowner?
Yes,
Oh, I see. Let me encourage you to not use any herbicides or
yeah. I mean, if you saw the picture,
fertilizer adjacent to Straits Pond. It's a very
Right.
critical environmental concern. And
I know, and we're aware of that. And if you've looked at our yard, if you look at the next 3 houses, you can tell we don't use anything. It's
Great.
full of, it's just weeds, but that's fine. And we
There are a lot of
care
great-
for the ponds, so we're
a lot of
trying
great
our
things in
best,
this world.
help it.
set a good example for those neighbors who were
Yeah.
We're
doing
trying.
the wrong thing.
We're trying our best.
Thank you.
Charlotte will be watching.
That's fine.
Yeah, let me know if you have any other questions and we'll work on the landscaping plan in the meantime. But yeah, you have plenty of time obviously for planting, so.
Yeah, okay. And so I don't know what happens with lifting this cease and desist. I don't know how that.
Yeah, I'll send you a follow-up email to the letter and just let you know that the work can continue as planned. And if you have any other questions, just let me know.
Okay. And is it that like immediate or is there a time?
Yeah, I can send it tomorrow.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
just didn't know if it was, okay. Okay. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Next item this evening is a new project at 392 South Main Street. I'll read it into the record. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetland Bylaw, and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, The Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, August 25th, 2022 at 6:30 PM via remote participation on a Zoom platform for a request for determination of applicability 22-18 for Connor and Colleen Cooper to install a corral and deck with a perimeter fence inside the riverfront area at 392 South Main Street.
Good evening.
Good
My name
evening.
is Carmen Hudson from Cavanaro Consulting / Merrill Engineering. We have, I'm sure you know, Cavanaro Consulting was bought by Merrill, and soon enough we will be dropping our Cavanaro Consulting name, which is completely painful because I worked for Cavanaro Consulting for 20 years since it was established. But
Well, if you have Cavanaro on this plan, there's one too many Cs, so drop it.
well, I am Carmen Campos Hudson, so I'm very close. I have 2 C's. So, but in any case,
Working for Connor and Colleen Cooper.
yes. So Connor is joining us tonight, and he's actually joining us from Tennessee. He's stuck in traffic right now. He's there with his family. So I will be presenting the project, and Connor will be here for questions. So if I may just share my screen. And let me see. I think this is it. Can everybody see this plan?
We have a sign in for Adobe on the screen.
Oh, Jesus. I am so sorry.
All right.
Let me get out of this.
Don't need any new
Sarah,
license.
guys, no, I don't use Facebook.
Okay.
I'm not a Facebooker.
Okay, let me try this again. So I believe here. There we go. Okay, and here I should be. Okay, so let me do share. Let me share again. There we go. Okay. I am sorry I'm taking so long. Okay, I'll make this very brief to make up for all the time I took just to make this work. So right now, there is construction going on at 392. There is this addition in the back that is taking place. There is this piece over here, which is an enclosed porch with a deck on top of it. That is.
Carmen, can you zoom in? We can't really see very much here. If you zoom into the areas you're going to talk about and go full screen here, if you can, that would be really nice.
Of course. Can you see my cursor?
Yeah, you could zoom in a bit more.
Okay, sure. Can you see my cursor though?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Better.
We just can't see what you're pointing at.
Okay, well, that's not good. Okay, so this is a construction that is going on right now for the addition in the rear. Connor, just to give you a little history, because what is happening right now is the Connor's neighbors are concerned about having farm animals in the back. And I just want to give you a little bit of a history as to why that concern is. Connor and his wife bought this property, and they wanted to have it for their home and also for their animals. They have a pony and a few goats, I believe. And he asked for an animal permit. I think it was either 2 years ago or a year ago. And then I believe that he removed the application. So he does not have a farm animal permit. He would like to probably do that in the future, but he is not planning to have farm animals here because he doesn't have an animal permit. He needs both a stable permit and an animal permit in order to keep farm animals here. So then what Connor did was just get permission, and that was a building permit to build his addition. And when this addition was being built, someone asked to check on the location of the river because we were showing an approximate location of the river. So then we had to go back in October of 2020 and actually located the riverbank as is shown here. So this was after the building permit was pulled. So what happened was the riverfront before went right in front of it because it was approximate. And when we located it in the ground, a little bit of, so that's 62 square feet of that porch that is being proposed is inside the riverfront. This is the 200-foot riverfront, and also the steps that would be leading to it. So that is the reason why we are in front of you. Also, what Connor is looking for is to put this fencing in and also put a perimeter fence along his property boundaries on the side. The perimeter fence would go into the 50-foot buffer zone here in red. All of this is lawn. And the portion of the fence that would be in the 50-foot buffer zone would consist of post and railing only. And the whole point is to delineate the property boundaries and enclose it, at least visually, going to the stone wall in the rear. All of this is lawn, so the wetland is very clear because the wetland goes to the stone wall, and beyond that is just lawn. And also there is another post and rail fence existing on the neighbor's property along this side as well, that goes all the way to the end. So this would mimic that fence, but on Connor's property, and it would also put a fence on the other side. So we are not here at all, and I made sure that I put this on the plan so it was clear. I was hoping that this would ease the concerns of Connor's neighbors, that this RDA is not at all for use of this land for farm animals. This is simply for the construction of this porch with the deck above, the stairs, fencing, and this perimeter fence along here, along the property boundaries going to the stone wall. That is all. So after this, I don't think, Connor, do you have anything to add? If not, please, if anyone has questions, I know there will be many neighbor questions, but if the commission has any questions, I would love to address them now.
I have a comment, or let's start with a question. How exactly did you determine the margins of the riverbank?
Oh, we actually surveyed the break in the slope. So that's the band, the break in slope.
The break and slope.
Yes.
If you read the state regulations, I believe you're supposed to be working from the high water mark.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Gulf, that would be called mean highest high water.
If it were high water mark like in the ocean, in that case, it's not mean high or high water. It's just simply the mean high water mark. Yeah, normally in the ocean, it's about elevation.
Well, this isn't the ocean. This is actually a river, in fact, and the state has actually marked a river mouth. So even though it is tidal, it's definitely considered to be a river. And as I read the state and our own regulations, the margin of that river, the edge of that river is the high water mark. And again, that would be mean highest high water here, since it is tidal. So if you just went out to the channel there in the marshland and thought that the edge of the incised channel into the marsh is the edge, that's not correct.
But so for a river, right, the mean high water mark is the break-in slope.
Sorry.
So the channel.
It's pretty well defined here that mean higher water is high water is the margin for the Gulf River.
Okay, well, that would be something that because.
So that's where you need to start measuring your 200 feet from. That'd be about the elevation 4.42 feet, I think. Let me check. And I think that's I'm pretty sure that's right.
Are you going by the title station in Boston?
No, I'm not. I'm actually going by the NOAA calculations for Cohasset Harbor. That's the closest we can work with.
The only thing with that though is that the elevations for the Cohasset station are not based on any datum other than its own datum. So it cannot be translated to NGP 29 or
Sorry,
88.
you need to look a little more closely at this.
Sure. I mean, as far as that is
Because
concerned,
first of all, this is not a tidal, this is not the tidal height, it's the height above NAVD 88.
okay, you know what, if that is obviously something that I wouldn't be able to answer right now, because I really thought that the break in slope was determining the mean high water mark of the, I'm sorry, the high water mark of the river. But I would be very interested in seeing that, just because I've had a lot of trouble getting that station in Cohasset in an actual datum 88 or 29. So I would love to have that. So if I am incorrect in the delineation of the river, then obviously this would not be correct. But this is my understanding of the delineation of the river. But I could confirm that.
Tom, you're fairly positive of that. And do you know, I mean, could you repeat how you defined it again as the high what?
So
Mean higher high water is the average of the highest high tide of each day throughout the tidal epoch of about 20 years.
Okay.
And it's well defined here in Cohasset. In fact, the entire Massachusetts, the entire coast from literally Maine to Brownsville, Texas, and then from San Diego to Seattle. These are not mysterious numbers that are hard to find. So, and it's perfectly well defined for the Gulf River as well.
once again, like
Nothing obscure about it if you know what you're looking for.
okay, so I once again, this is my understanding of the delineation of the river. I would have to look into it more, and I would love to have also the material that you have in front of you to check. But that is obviously not something that I could check right now.
Right. I understand that.
So obviously this brings to question, you know, whether or not there's accuracy in this drawing or not. So maybe the best thing I think to do would be to continue this hearing until September the 8th, during which time you'd be able to confirm that.
Okay. So just and once again, I will review this, and yes, I will, you know, I will have an answer for you by then. But for example, right next door, we did this survey as well. And it was the location, the break in slope, that is the, you know, the determination of the inland bank of
There's no mention of a break in slope in the statute, both in the state and in our local bylaws. Those words are not in the statute, and they're not in our bylaws.
Okay. Okay.
Nothing. They don't say anything about a break in slope. They talk about the high water mark.
Mhm. Okay.
And in a tidal system, that actually could be a number of things. Could be the highest tide on record, could be the storm of record. I believe that is mentioned with respect to some of these critical datums. So that would be even higher, of course, than 4.42 feet.
It's actually, so when it comes with, so it's normally the mean high water mark, and that is determined through a 20-year epoch, which the Cohasset station has a 20-year epoch. But once again, I mean, I have contacted NOAA to try to get that station datum to be converted to 1988 or 1929. And I have been unable to, that's why I'm so interested to see what you have. But regardless,
there is no station at Cohasset. That's the first thing.
well, there is a tidal station in Whitehead. And there is, but that one that cannot be converted to 88 or 29. So normally the one I use is the one in Boston, because that is, you know, but once again, when you have to use the mean high water line that you use, and it has to be determined by a 20-year epoch, and you have to be able to convert it to a datum that you can use.
Yeah, and that information is available. There's thousands of points along the coast that have the NAVD 88 datum as a reference point, and there's 3 right in Cohasset Harbor, and there's 2 in the Cove.
Okay, once again, I'm very interested in seeing what you have, and absolutely, if I am incorrect in how we determine the riverfront, then of course, then the riparian zones would be incorrect as well. So it probably would be best to continue the hearing, and if I could possibly have the information you have, that would be great. That way I could confirm, and I'll make sure that this doesn't happen in the future.
Is there anything you can share with the applicant?
Yeah, we can. I'll pass the information to Charlotte.
Yeah.
On to her.
Okay.
Also, I'll just add a quick note. I know we talked about this in the beginning of Carmen's presentation, but just to enter into the public record, we did receive a lot of letters from abutters with this one. I've, emailed some people, called some people, worked with some people in person. And so there's definitely, obviously a common pattern here with any animal use concerns. And so it seems like for now, they're not proposing that at this time. But of course, if any of the neighbors have any questions about this current work that's being proposed, since we're continuing the hearing, I'm happy to, take any questions in the meantime. And then, again, if anything is revised and sent to me, it's public record. So, people are welcome to look at it. So just wanted to acknowledge that we did receive, some letters from the neighbors within the 100-foot parcel. I think it was 412, 404, 390. Oh, sorry, not 390. I think it was 391. South Main Street. So we definitely have a lot of neighbors who would definitely like to hear some more information, I guess, at the next continued hearing as well.
Charlotte, if I'm not mistaken, all those letters actually dealt with animal.
Most of them, yeah. So like they definitely, yeah.
I mean, the applicant calls this a corral, but in effect, we're talking about fencing.
Mhm.
because it really has no current use as containment for
Correct.
the kind of animals. So
Mhm.
this, really what we're really looking at here is fencing, which, as you explained in an earlier hearing, is only of concern if it inhibits passage and of wildlife. And then, of course, the bigger concern obviously is the screened in porch and stairs if in fact the buffer changes. But
correct, yeah.
so I'd like to just let's end it here. We'll continue this until September the 8th, and hopefully by then we'll have some clarity on this.
I would just say that if and when there are farm animals brought in here, this, I believe it does fall under our jurisdiction since it's in the riverfront.
Absolutely.
And there would be a serious issue of, in fact, we've already been through this
Yes.
With other applicants about how the paddock is managed, which generally means that I think the solution is that the manure is carried off daily.
And so because we heard from the neighbors regarding that use, I took out the word corral from the plan, and I added also this call out saying proposed post and rail fence shall not be used for farm animals unless and until an animal permit and or a stable permit is granted by Cohasset Board of Health. A new conservation filing will be required for any future farm animal use. I was hoping that this would ease the minds of the abutters. I can definitely understand their concern, but this call out will continue being here, and we will be here back on on September 8th after we review the
Great.
river.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next item this evening is NOI 22-28. This is at 124 South Main Street, and I'm going to read it into the record. In accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetland Bylaws, and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, the Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, August 25th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on a Zoom platform for a notice of intent 22-28 by Andrew Patton to construct a rear addition and deck to property at 124 South Main Street.
Good evening once again, Carmen Hudson from Merrill Engineering. I'm making the transition already. I am joined tonight by Andrew Patton, and Angie and Chloe are the owners of the property at 124 South Main Street. They would like to remove their existing deck in the rear and put an addition there and pretty much move the deck further back. So there would be decking over existing lawn and landscape, and the addition would take place over the existing deck, as well as the retaining walls that come out of the existing basement and the entrance to the existing basement. There are 3 trees on the northern side of the existing enclosed porch that are going to be removed. The reason for this is because one tree, this triple tree, it emerges from the foundation. They are right on top of the building. So they are really a hazard to the structure itself. So they're being proposed to be removed. But I thought that it would be actually better to take a look at what is there today. This is the existing rear of the house. This is the deck where the proposed addition will be located. The new deck would be in front of it. As you can see, this is just lawn and landscape. This is what's under the deck. Right now, there is an entrance to the basement, concrete steps. There's like broken up concrete and crushed stone and retaining walls and crushed stone on either side. This is under the deck. As you can see here, these are the trees that we're proposed to removing. This tree, you can see that it's sprouting out of the stone foundation. That's that triple tree that we were talking about, and these other trees that are close to the foundation. And this is the resource area. It's really Phragmites, and they're adjacent to the stream. This is a stream that flows towards, oh geez, I'm blanking out. What is that? Well, the brook, James Brook, there we go. But it's an unnamed stream. This is an area of the lot. What this is really is just the single family home and then lawn until one reaches the wall of Phragmites, and then there's a stream. So the proposed addition will be taking place over the deck, and the proposed deck will take place over the lawn. Now, Charlotte had mentioned the 1,000 square foot, alteration. We do not think that applies to this project because the alteration is taking place over an existing developed lot, is taking over place over an existing structure, an existing lawn. And if it did apply to developed lots, then we would argue that just the on-the-ground footprint should be counted, or at least discount the areas of the existing structures. If we were to do that, we would come up with about like 600 square feet or so. So it would still be under 1,000 square feet. But But in any case, we do not think that the 1,000 square foot limit really pertains to developed lots. So just one more thing that I didn't go over is the fact that this stream is perennial. So it has a 100-foot inner riparian zone, a 100-foot outer riparian zone, the 200-foot riverfront. And these Phragmites, as invasive as they are BVW. So it has an associated 50-foot buffer zone and a 100-foot buffer zone. This stockpiling area that you see here, and we're providing a crushed stone tire washing area at the end of the driveway. These were things that Charlotte had asked that we showed. So we're trying to maintain everything outside of the 50-foot buffer zone. I just moved the silt sock a little bit into the 50-foot buffer zone just so Andy's kids could use the swing set during construction. And if the commission has any questions for me.
The one question that comes to mind, I don't see how the wheel wash area is going to work. I mean, are you pulling onto that and then hosing off the tires?
Yep, that's exactly what we would do. And I mean, we don't expect really any, much mud to really be dragged here. This is a driveway and it's a small project. However, this was something that Charlotte had brought up to our attention, and that's exactly what we would do, is bring the cars here, they get their tires washed, and then just go back to the street. Because the concern is, dragging mud onto the street. So that is the reason for the tire washing area.
Is all that area which is labeled equipment staging and stockpiling necessary?
No, it just, we had to show it. So
No, I understand, but you've got your silt sock right at the 50-foot buffer.
Mhm.
And as we see with other projects, that pretty much as much area as you're given is going to get disturbed. So obviously, if that line gets pulled in 15, 20 feet, then that's 15 or 20 feet less disturbance in proximity to the tributary. So
yeah, I understand, because yes, at the end of the day, the silt sock really visually shows what the limit of disturbance is, so that the contractors know. Actually, John Toriaki should be here on this call. He's the architect for the project. So I don't know if maybe John could speak up as far as whether or not we really need such an area there. I'm guessing that we could always move it somewhere else, but John, you're muted.
Yes, hi, how are you? Good evening.
Hi.
John Toriaki Architectural Design. And by the way, Andrew and Chloe is my sister-in-law, just for the record. So this is their house down South Main Street. And the equipment area, I think there's plenty of other area farther away. For example, on the north side of the plan, that could also be used. I don't think it needs to be as deep, as close to the 50-foot buffer. I think contractors can manage to split that into smaller stockpiling groups farther away from the silt sock. But we can discuss that with the contractor and make sure they maintain a healthy buffer to that visual buffer, essentially.
Oh, and I am so sorry. I actually had a meeting with Andy yesterday, and he wanted to address the commission. And I am sorry, Andy, I completely bypassed you. You wanted to let the commission know why this addition was necessary.
Oh,
for your
and
family.
thank you, Carmen. I don't want to take up the commission's time, but we've lived in this house, or had this house, for 7 years. My wife was born and raised in Cohasset, and our family has grown since we bought the property, and I have 3 very energetic boys. So we're looking to make a modest addition to add a bedroom and a second full bathroom. We only have 1.5 right now. So that's the reason for the addition. Building the same footprint of deck basically off the back of the addition. So with that, I'll turn it over to John and Carmen. I appreciate your time and your entertaining our notice. Thank you.
Carmen, Eric Eisenhower. Do you have a larger diagram of actually what the building is that's going on? Because I see decks and things I can't even read. And I know I'm hearing about second bedrooms and all of that. It's not clear to me what we're actually doing here.
You know what, probably the first story architectural plan would help. Let me see.
I can share that too, Carmen, if it's
Oh,
easier.
that would be great.
Yeah, let me share my screen. So let me show you the existing floor plan, just so we can kind of compare the existing and proposed. So South Main Street is parallel to the bottom of the page.
Okay.
Driveways here, the footprint of the existing house and the footprint of the existing deck. And then our proposal is essentially going to the line of where the existing deck was, which is roughly this line.
Okay.
And putting an addition there. And part of that addition is 1 story and part of it is 2 stories. So this right half is a 1-story addition and the left half has a second floor above it. And then behind the addition, we have basically the recreation of the deck that got taken over.
Okay.
That will be impervious.
And the 1-story, John, has a roof deck on it as well?
It just has a roof.
Oh, it's not a deck on top.
No, there's no deck on top. It's a 1-story roof, and then this portion of the plan has a second story above that footprint of it, but projecting over that piece.
Okay.
And then the foundation plan, while I have this open, I can just run through the foundation plan real quick, because we are planning to make the foundation of the addition fully flood-proof or flood compliant with flood vents. And we are planning to move all of the existing utilities out of the existing basement, including the electrical panel, heating, equipment, and everything up to the first floor level to make the foundation fully flood compliant. So flood waters can come in and out. And under the deck will be fully pervious with a minimal number of footings to structurally support the deck.
Okay. I think I understand.
Okay, great.
So, John, what would you say is a reasonable work area beyond the deck?
Carmen, if you could share your site plan again, maybe we can look at that. I believe Carmen's area is probably roughly about 20 feet deep. Maybe I'm just guessing from the scale of it. Maybe it's 20 to 30 feet deep. And we can probably leave a 15 to 20 foot area beyond the deck stairway.
Yeah.
That would allow any equipment to pass through without getting too close to the 50-foot buffer.
So basically, if we were approximately 10 feet inside the 50-foot buffer all the way across, that would probably work.
I would think so. Yeah, I don't see how that shouldn't work. Yeah.
I mean, it's only a silt sock. The kids can step over a silt sock. And the tire run, the tire wash off, it seems to me that it's all shedding towards the resource area. So in effect, the gravel is there as kind of a catchment. But I mean, if that's the case, then
you know, you wash it off on the asphalt and let it go into the gravel, but pull the gravel away from the 50-foot buffer, so it has a little time to settle. If it's gonna run off, don't have it go right into the buffer.
That makes sense to me, yeah.
Yeah.
It looks to me, John, that the only permanent facility being built close to the 50-foot is your wash-off area. Is that correct?
Which ironically, I think was an effort to address the commission's comments, but maybe it got a little too close. Yeah, there's no reason why that can't be
I
relocated.
think you've done a good job of moving most of the new construction quite distant to the 50-foot limit.
Yes, and
Yeah,
actually,
But Eric, we're also dealing with the 100-foot riverfront here as well, so.
Except, you know, Chris, that's an area that doesn't have well-defined criteria.
what actually I was thinking of doing before having to have an assigned tire washing area was just simply to wash the tires on the driveway and have another silt sock around. Because everything does go in this direction towards the wetland. So if we just put another silt sock at the end of the driveway and wash the tires on the pavement, then the sedimentation would get trapped by the first silt sock before it continues towards the wetland, if that works for the commission. That would make more sense.
That's fine. Be fine by me, at least.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we can change this to have one siltation barrier at the end, in addition to what we have now, and then just move the siltation barrier from, let's see, it would probably just be straight.
No, I think you should pull it. I think you should pull it 10 feet off of that 50-foot buffer as well.
Over on this side? Okay, sure,
Yeah.
close to the,
Because what we find is the silt sock usually is the limit of construction. Sometimes it gets violated, and in this case, if it violates, you're in the 50-foot buffer. So give yourself a little space. And
okay. So the only thing would be probably we would just have to remove this, the first silt sock, so that if any kind of, I don't know, a small backhoe or something needs to go to the back, it can, and then we would just maintain the one that's further back. And then we would just put this back, the silt sock, whenever we wash, the tires. Okay, yeah, certainly, that makes.
Alternatively, if you just gave yourself enough of a little gravel trench there to grab it all, you could drive over it all day long. Not to tell you how to design it.
That's probably better, because those guys are not gonna remember to put the silt sock back every time, so.
Right.
You would get to leave it permanent, maybe give it a 10, 15-foot buffer or something.
Yep.
Are you, you're just talking about like a 2-foot trench, right?
Yeah, something to grab all the mud as it comes off the driveway.
Okay, absolutely.
But Chris, I am well aware that the resource area here we're trying to protect is Cohasset's largest Phragmites field possible. We're not really talking here about Straits Pond or any area that's really sensitive to.
Not our call, Eric.
I know it's not, but we don't want to be fine-tuned too much here. That's my view, at least.
Eric, I would also point out that the state does equate that first 100 feet with more or less what we do in the 50-foot buffer. So it's not nebulous at all. When you read the state bylaws about the riverfront area, it's that first 100 feet is pretty serious.
Yeah, except in our bylaws, Tom, right?
Oh no, ours pretty much follow the state.
Yeah,
there's one difference. The state allows for exceptions to activity. We don't. We have no exceptions to that the state has, and home rule stuff, we trump the state.
So the question, Tom, is being that this is a disturbed area, can we?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what we're looking at. It's already been developed. And so it's not like we're talking about a pristine riverfront here.
Yeah.
There's lawns and stuff. So yeah, but just keep in mind that the state, the riverfronts are one of the state's primary targets for preservation and protection. So given how wide a riverfront is, 200 feet instead of 100 feet, you might suspect that the state thinks that a riverfront resource is more valuable than the buffer around a wetland.
Right. Okay. Let's see. So, do we have any other comments, questions?
Nope.
No.
Actually, Andy, John and Andy have to go to the zoning board of appeals for a special permit because the work is also in the floodplain. And as part of the project, Andy reached out to his neighbors, and I believe your neighbor to the left is in support of your project, correct, Andy?
That's correct. We, as a courtesy, we spoke with Tina Watson, who is will be the most disturbed by the construction activity, and we just wanted to share our plans with her to make sure she was agreeable to it, and she was, and she had no objection to the project.
Yeah, the neighbor to the right is actually the Catholic Church, so it's just land that belongs to the church. So really, she would be the only neighbor affected.
I would just say that looking at what you guys are doing in terms of flood damage mitigation is really the right thing to do. That this part of Cohasset is really at risk if our dike system, i.e. Border Street and Margin Street, were to fail. The houses in this neighborhood would be severely impacted.
And Mr. Bell, one of the reasons for this project is the move to utilities. Our basement will never be finished, and we're trying to be proactive about it and move the utilities up, add the floodgates to hopefully, we've seen a lot more encroachment over the last few years than when we moved in. So we're trying to get out ahead of it.
Yeah, getting your mechanicals out of harm's way is really critical.
Absolutely.
You may be aware that our storm of record came within 6 inches to a foot of topping Border Street, and if it were to get as deep as 6 or 8 or maybe 12 inches in the next storm over Border Street would the town side of that dike would be erode in a heartbeat, and you'd go from a foot deep to 8 feet deep real quick and widening with every minute. So you're doing the right thing.
We think so. Yeah.
All right. Any other comments?
I believe there were 3 trees that are going to be removed on the right side of the property. Is that correct? And if so, were you going to replace them somewhere on the property? Somewhere else on the property?
So yes, there are some trees that are, a threat to the foundation and or our roof. And it was our contractor's recommendation that, if you're going to put a new roof on, you should remove these trees. We certainly do intend to do some additional landscaping once the project is completed. I love trees and would like to keep some sort of a buffer on that side. So my wife and I have discussed planting a tree, with a good enough setback from the house that it won't become an issue in the future. So that's certainly something that we've discussed and that we're certainly open to.
Okay, thank you. Great.
So Kathy, do you have a recommendation? Should we replace them 1 for 1?
At least, yes, 1-to-1 is good.
All right. So we'll make that an order of conditions.
And just to ask for a little bit of clarity, is it expected that they be planted in the general location where the trees are being removed, or can we pick elsewhere on the property? I'm just not familiar.
Because our purview only extends to the 100-foot buffer, they should be within the 100-foot buffer.
It actually, your jurisdiction is actually all over the property because the riverfront goes into.
Because of the riverfront,
On
yes.
the other side, yeah. So
Okay.
I think our whole property is within that 100.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough.
So it's a floodplain, actually.
So, all right, so if you would, work with Charlotte to, just figure out species and location for the trees, and also, issue to her a revised plan that shows the location of the silt sock as we've discussed, and the washout containment trench. We can make those both orders of a condition, and we'll be able to vote on this.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion to close the public hearing and to issue an order of condition for NOI 22-28 at 124 South Main Street, with the special conditions that the applicant will provide within 7 days a new plan that shows a final location for the silt sock, which is at least 10 feet outside of the 50-foot buffer, and a modification to the wheel wash area that puts in a stone trench to collect sediment as the wheels are washed off on the bituminous driveway. And as a second condition, the applicant will work with Charlotte to locate and to determine species of 3 trees, at least 2.5-inch caliber, to replace the 3 that are being removed. Those should be installed the next planting season, which typically is spring or fall, following completion of the work proposed here. Do I have a second?
Yeah.
Having a motion and a second, we'll issue an order of conditions for 124 South Main Street. We'll take a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisenhower, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you to the commission. Thank you, Charlotte. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
The next hearing this evening is NOI 22-27 and Stormwater Permit 22-22, which is for the raise and rebuild of 80 North Main Street, continued from August the 11th.
Hello, once again. I know you're very tired of seeing me, but this is my last hearing, I promise. So this is a hearing that was continued from the last hearing in August, and I'm being joined by the homeowner, Tom Hensey, and landscape architect Carol Lamb. The reason why we continued the hearing at our last hearing was because we hadn't conducted test pits under the proposed infiltration systems. So we had the opportunity to conduct test pits, and we found the same material that we had assumed that was there from the NRCS web soil, which was sandy loam. And also we did not encounter groundwater. I'm sorry, not sandy loam, loomy sand. I don't know if you want to see the plan. Let me pull it up. Nothing has changed. The only thing that has changed on the plan is that we are now showing the location of the test pits, and we have the test pit information here. but the design has not changed at all. The location has not changed at all. The plantings are still being proposed. Really this plan hasn't changed since the last time you saw it. Something else that came up at our last hearing was the question on whether or not we could alter 1,000 square feet within the 50-foot buffer zone. And once again, like the previous hearing, we do not believe that the 1,000 square feet really applies to a developed area, especially in this case, when we are removing the lawn, existing lawn, to put plantings there. And actually,
And that's been confirmed by council, so.
oh, okay, I was not aware that council had confirmed that. But yeah, so other than that, it was just a test pit to confirm the soil conditions and the groundwater location, and we have done that. Something else that Tom has done is reach out to his neighbors. There are some neighbors that have submitted comments to Charlotte, and I'm sure you have those comments, but there are also some other neighbors that were supportive of the project, and they responded to Tom. Just for the record, I just wanted to mention who they are. So they were Paul Faraki, Paul Trendowicz, Don Ryan, John Coffey, Bill Henry, and Tom Clements. And something that Tom, in his discussion with his next door neighbor, is looking into is maybe having a construction entrance. There are, several trees in the front, but Kara was looking at maybe a location where there would be the smallest trees and the least amount of disturbance to put a construction entrance. So that's something that that Tom is trying to look into to try to appease the neighbors' concerns about using the shared driveway for the construction vehicles. So that's something that we will continue doing, after the hearing is closed. It's his intention to proceed with that.
Carmen, if I may, I'll just address one more abutter letter that we received today from Chris and Astrid Peisch. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your names. I apologize. Just met them today. So they did say in one of their letters about any sort of replanting plan to create a wall of evergreens along the entire boundary of the property. And this might relate a little bit more to planning, but they requested the elimination alteration of a top floor window facing northwest in order to ensure privacy between the two homes. So I'm just wanted to enter that into the public record as well.
Yeah, I mean, we still have, I think I mentioned this during our first hearing, we have our hearing with the planning board, the large home review hearing. It was continued until the 25th, actually, because they had many hearings for their first September hearing. So yes, that is more of a planning board comment. But once again, Tom has been looking into different ways of trying to address, neighbors' concerns.
In response to neighbors' concerns, they actually specify the type of tree that they would like to see. Within the 100-foot buffer, all plant material has to be chosen from the Cohasset native plant list, which those trees are not part of. So that'll have to be worked out.
Okay, yeah, so that could be perhaps in the order of conditions, that if any additional plantings that are not shown on the landscape plan of record are going to be added, that they have to be reviewed and approved by Charlotte.
Yes. I mean, obviously, the hope would be that it's not like a, kind of a straight line of hedge that's going to have mulch under it and contribute to erosion. I mean, it wants to be planted like the trees are out front, that they're staggered and that they're not sitting in a big mulch bed, that they're actually in the landscape material that was explained to us prior.
Mhm.
And quite frankly, I'm not quite sure how you're gonna fit them in between the stairs and the edge if they're gonna be on that side as well, so. I mean,
Um,
that's important to consider.
So we already have a landscape plan of record with the commission.
Yep.
You know, with this application, everything within the 100-foot buffer zone is native. Most of the plants outside also were, but certainly within the 100-foot buffer zone, they are. Once again, Tom is trying to work with his neighbors, but we, you know, permits have to move on, and we will just make sure that if the planning board or if we decide that those trees should be planted, that we go back to Charlotte and make sure that she's okay with the additional plantings. I mean, obviously plantings wouldn't be taken away, that would be added to the approved plan, but I mean, this is really the most that we can do.
No, understood.
Mhm.
There's an elevation difference between the two properties also. So the trees that are buffering today are actually on their side of the line, but on my side of the existing fence. So it's a little strange there, but we thought we would work together to try and fill it in more.
Any questions from the commission? Concerns?
Yeah, Chris, in the letter from the neighbor, the abutter,
Yes.
I believe, I don't have it in front of me now. I believe there was a reference to a 40-foot tall trees going in.
There was well. There was
I
a-
assume we're
They
talking
didn't,
about-
they didn't say anything about them going in at 40 feet. They
Yeah,
mentioned, they
I assume we're
mentioned
talking about
trees.
mature height down the road, 40 feet. 'Cause that's-
Yes,
40 feet is a reach, quite a reach to put something on the back of a truck.
well, for the species that they suggested, 40 feet in Cohasset, you know, being windblown is highly unlikely as well.
Yeah. Okay, but we have a list anyways, Chris. And I'll
Exactly,
give you from the list, all right.
exactly.
Okay,
Any other questions? Okay, well, Charlotte, okay, so we're gonna need three things here. I'm gonna start with a motion for I'll start with the stormwater permit 22-22. Make a motion to issue a stormwater permit for the project at 80 North Main Street.
second,
Second, having a motion and a second to issue a stormwater permit for 22-22 at 80 North Main Street. We'll take a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisenhower, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 5-0. Next, we'll issue an order of conditions for NOI 22-27 for 80 North Main Street with the condition that any changes to the plan, which include updates to landscape, as well as the removal of plants in front of the project for a construction entrance, need to come back in front of the agent for at minimum administrative approval. I think that's the only special condition. Do I have a second?
Second,
Having a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions for NOI 22-27 at 80 North Main Street. We'll take a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisenhower, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 5-0. And last, we need to issue a variance for work within the 50-foot buffer, which is going to be limited to the area from the, well, as shown on the plan, to receive a portion of fill material where the existing house, portion of the house is removed, and then to clear and replant the buffer using the native plant list as shown on the landscape architect's plans. Do I have a second?
Second.
Having a motion and a second to issue a variance for work within the 50-foot buffer, we'll take a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisner, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 5-0.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Okay, our next hearing this evening is new to the Is it?
Yeah, this
Oh,
one
was-
is new.
This was, yeah, this was well, it appeared on 8/11, but for some reason.
It was, so it was originally scheduled for July 28th, and then it was continued to 8/11 and then to 8/25. But this is the initial hearing
Okay,
for
so
the
I'm going to read it
project.
into the record. In accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetland Bylaw and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, the Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, July 28th, 2022 at 6:30 PM via remote participation on a Zoom platform for notice of intent 22-25 to expand the existing deck, manage vegetation, and create a wet meadow with a boardwalk for property at 10 Mohawk Way by Julie Hess.
Josh Green from Merrill Engineers Land Surveyors. We'll just share the screen with the plan.
Josh, I don't see Amy in the audience. Are they on the call?
Not sure. Love might know better than I if they are
Okay.
here.
Yeah, I don't see Amy. Amy Mueller is actually the new applicant / property owner, just for the record.
So not Julie Hess?
No, so the original NOI was submitted under the previous owners, and they revised the plan, and now it's actually under new property owners, brand new.
Plan can be seen.
Yes.
So under existing conditions, there is a single family home with a paved driveway. To the east, just off the property line shown by the stone wall, there is a bordering vegetated wetland that was delineated by Brad Holmes of ECR. He also showed us an area that's outlined in red that we'll get into once I go to the proposed conditions, but just for reference, it's a little harder to see in the next one. That's for the wet tolerant plants that we'll get into. That said, we'll move over to the proposed. I'll move my way from outside the 100-foot buffer back towards the resource. Basically outside of the 100-foot buffer, just for reference and what's going on in the project. The existing driveway will be utilized as a construction vehicle entrance and staging as necessary, with the stockpile area being located outside the 100-foot buffer. The site itself takes on part of the road runoff from Mohawk Way and I believe it is Beach Street.
Mr. Green, could you zoom in on this? That's a pretty small drawing.
Yep. So we're just talking this area right now. So Beach Street's located up here. The runoff kind of comes down and goes through this existing swale. We're just proposing a small depression to just slow that water up a little bit. It's outside the 100-foot buffer. It's just want to reference it in case somebody saw it and was wondering. Moving into the 100 to 50-foot buffer, the items that are proposed under this application are the expansion of the deck area. There is an existing deck, but it'll be expanded about 1,200 square feet. And the shower area that is existing will be repaired. The front walkway will be replaced with permeable walkway. And down to the south, there is an area of ledge that is covered in some small brush, mostly poison ivy. They'd like to remove part of that as far as the poison ivy. The trees that are overhanging the house back to the north, just trying to keep it zoomed in for you, are located or are labeled to be removed or TBR on the plan. So there is 3 that are, one's outside the 100, other are inside the 50 to 100-foot buffer. Those are being removed due to the danger to the house. The children's room is located on that side of the house, so just due to safety, they really want to get those out while this application's there. And then just on top of that, a small storage shed and planters are proposed in the 50 to 100 foot buffer. Moving inside the 50-foot buffer.
Could I slow you down for a second?
Yeah.
The 3 trees you're talking about are labeled as 24-inch something?
20, it's not, the species isn't there. It's just 24-inch and 30-inch.
Yeah, but you said there were 3.
Yep, the other one's a 22-inch cedar that's outside, 100 foot.
So both the 22-inch cedar and the 24-inch whatever, both seem to be located on the neighbor's property. Is that correct?
We do have the tagline to cover the abutting coordination with the abutting property.
Right, but is it correct that they are on the neighbor's property?
The 24-inch is basically located right through the property line. We had the line staked. It is staked in the field.
And the 22 is on the neighbor's property?
Again, it's the same thing. It looks like the trunk goes right through the property line.
Okay.
Have you received permission from the neighbor to remove the trees?
I would ask Love to speak to that one. I'm not entirely sure. I thought there was coordination going on.
I would suggest you get something in writing before you start coming in with your chainsaw.
Yes.
Yeah,
Those 2 trees that are on the property line.
Thank you. I'm Love Albrecht Howard. I'm a landscape designer. Yes, they have discussed it with the neighbors. The neighbors have no problem with it. They can't even really see those trees. And we will most certainly get it in writing and give the commission a copy.
How far is that cedar from the house? How many feet?
1 second, I'll find out right now for you.
Could you indicate it on the map, which I think you said it's a 24-inch tree, is that correct?
The cedar, this one here is a 22-inch.
Yep.
And it's about 12 feet from the edge of the house.
That's the cedar.
Yep.
It's a good one.
These also sit on ledge. And so of course, everyone's a little concerned about the storms we've had. The clients closed on this property 3 weeks after the October 27th storm. And so a number of trees split in the back and they saw the trees down all over that part of Cohasset. So of course, there's concern.
So then the last portion.
These are the ones that are left. They're standing.
Those are the strong ones.
You know.
So the last portion of the project, and probably the most exciting, is the buffer enhancement that's going on in the 0 to 50. The variance application was filled out for this. As I discussed, the stormwater runs off from the road and basically inundates this area. During portions of the year, we do have some standing water. So our plan, or the applicant's plan, was to propose wet tolerant plantings in the middle there. And then on the outside, some additional plantings, just kind of give back that 50-foot buffer zone to provide the plantings. They are proposing a boardwalk to go through it. The idea here is to kind of, one, revitalize the buffer zone and have a benefit to the resource area, but also provide an area for their children to interact with the revitalized area of nature as more animals and insects and plants come back to the area. So that is the reason for that. And the last item, I believe, is the split tree shown right here. It's a 24-inch. It has been severely damaged by storm, and that will be removed as well. I believe that is it. Oh, the only other thing is the silt sock is shown on the limit of the property line on the down gradient side. It's just shown on that side, obviously, because during the plantings, we'll need it that close to the resource area. With that, I would open it up to questions.
So you have a wet area on the lawn, and how long is it wet during the year?
Not sure. I'm guessing during the typical times, but I don't think the homeowner has been there long enough to entirely say.
It looks suspiciously like it's a wetland.
It's all lawn right now. It's been maintained lawn. It's really, the idea is to get it back to be a buffer zone, or at least provide plantings to get it not a lawn.
I think that's a worthy goal.
Is this a buffer zone restoration project, or is this a wet area that you want to kind of have it look like it's a buffer zone? I'm not sure exactly what your objective is here, because the two are entirely different projects.
Yep, it's just buffer zone enhancement, Eric. It's not anything that we're trying to truly restore. It's the applicants, they clearly have a passion for nature and its resources. They're trying to do their best to restore what they can, and also have, you know, a yard that they can still enjoy with their children.
Yeah.
So do you have a plant list that goes with this?
There is a plant list on the top of the plan. So that kind of breaks down the two areas. The privacy planting, I forget if I mentioned that, but that's up by the road. But these are the two that are, these plants are in the area within the 50-foot buffer. They are, as I understand, all on the approved list.
Yeah, looks like it.
So this is shrubs as well as forbs, is that right?
Yeah. And some trees.
Yeah.
Cornus Florida and or actually it could be a shrub.
I think it would be worthwhile to have a more detailed plan of this for the planting.
In regards to like the layout of the individual plants?
Yeah, I mean, you know, certain ones, like, you know, if the ferns are good, or you take a fern, for instance, if they're going to be planted as a mixed bed, then they can be shown as a mixed bed and called out that way. If they're going to be shown as a big area, then I think it's important to kind of understand that. So this looks like a pretty big area too. I mean, how big an area is this?
Those two are about 3,000 square feet. If we take the 1,000 and the 2,000, so roughly, we'll call it 3,050.
So it's a little light on plants for restoration and stabilization. Yes, Ms. Howard.
This area gets wet, obviously, after we have an event like we have Monday and or Tuesday, and tends to sit. It has been maintained as a lawn, a mown lawn for the last 45, 50 years.
Yep.
And when we explored this and the clients let me know their passion for nature and their passion for supporting wildlife, which is incredibly refreshing, I suggested that we let the grasses grow and that we augment it with things that are pretty, but just in small, except for the Nissa sylvatica there, the tupelo, which we would put in a little bit larger. Most things would be plugs or quartz with a couple of 1 gallons that are shrubs. So we would not really remove anything except for where that exam plant is going, and then just sort of let nature take its course. So it's like rewilding.
Yeah, the only problem with rewilding is that Mother Nature's tougher than you are. And
Yes.
she's got a longer vision, and she can fight much harder than you can, particularly when you don't have any fertilizers or any other chemistry that you can use because you're in the buffer zone. You know, what you normally do in a project like this is to define it as a major or a minor buffer zone restoration project. The first thing you do is come in with a turfing machine and take all the lawn out, because you're not going to succeed in what I would call creating a Mother Nature's wild patch when you got something which is a 30-year lawn that's pretty well embedded in place. Ideally, you come in with a turfing machine, you take all the lawn out, all right? You put some neutral soil in, and you put one of your seed mixes in, your wild seed mixes, and you start from scratch. But if you don't get the grass out of there, the wildness is never going to survive. And a lot of the plants you're putting in, which you want to leave to sort of fend for themselves, are not going to make it when you have them growing, you know, with really tough turf grasses all around them. The turf grasses probably have to go if your dream wants to be successful.
With all due respect, I have actually done this, and it has been successful.
I have done 4 of these. I can tell you, I have been. Whenever I've left the grass or the lawn there, it's an unsatisfactory over long term. But you do what you want, all right? You obviously think you know what you're doing, so I wish you the best of luck on that. But I would turf it, and I would take the existing lawn out, and I would put some neutral soil in, And I would then put in some mix, which is the kind of mix you want. And by taking the turf out, you get all the weeds out. You take the weed seeds out, all right, which are very important to control the invasive. So, but that's not our purview. That's yours.
Thank you.
Well,
I know Julie.
it's our purview in the sense that we are looking for something that's going to survive it, and it's part of our order of conditions that it has to be monitored and I don't know if it's part of, is it a special condition, Charlotte, or is it a normal condition that this has to survive and be monitored for 3 years?
3 years.
Yeah, so we have a standard boilerplate in our special conditions template. Special condition in our boiler template. Yeah, sorry, mixing my words around. But basically it says the plantings must survive 3 full growing seasons and or be replaced by the owner, basically. So yeah, we do have to see the plants be successful for 3 consecutive years. That can be issued as an ongoing condition or as part of the whole orders of condition, depending on how we want to condition the project.
Have you discussed coming in and removing the turf with the owner?
No, because we wanted to do as little disturbance as possible. And the lawn that's there is what I would call truly a freedom lawn. It's a myriad of many, many things, and they let it grow this summer. And there are some nice things growing in there. Lobelia is blooming now. There's some eupatorium that's creeping up the back. So to your point, some of the weed seed bank is actually very positive. So we were encouraged seeing that.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Well, Eric, I believe on other projects, one thing that we did condition is the fact that while you can let Mother Nature do its thing, that invasive species have to be removed, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can we go back to the overall plan, please?
The hard thing, Chris, is controlling the invasives.
Absolutely.
Because you're not going to be able to, you won't control them through mowing because you're going to have a restored wild area here, and it probably should not be mowed much at all.
Right.
We would hand pull.
Like I said, I would recommend you turf it and start over, and you'd have a beautiful thing, a beautiful wild lawn buffer zone 3 years from now. But
does anyone have any questions about any of the other items that are shown between the 50 and the 100-foot buffer?
Yeah, I don't really understand the purpose of the walkway.
The front walkway?
No, the boardwalk through that.
It's really a way
in the buffer zone.
They just wanted to integrate, like I said, get their kids integrating into this area that they're building. If the boardwalk's ultimately no go, then we can look at alternatives to it. I believe Love has a couple, but the main idea was that so that there was some integration without having to walk through all the vegetation. Just trying to promote exploring for the kids, I guess, is the main reason.
Well, I really like the idea that you're going to try to rewild the buffer zone, but it seems incongruous to stick a wooden structure right through the middle of it to me. That's not exactly very natural. And this is within, the 50-foot buffer. And generally, I don't think we'd approve of something like this.
The other option that we were discussing was to put stepping stones through there. It's just another way to access what's there and to do it in a relatively aesthetically pleasing way and also a fun way. So again, it's all part of celebrating nature.
I think that's a great alternative.
yeah, I think we probably, Tom, more often denied this type of walkway than we have allowed it in the past.
Yeah.
Just because of the disturbance and the unnaturalness, the alteration of the buffer zone, which we've never been very which we didn't want to see.
This is going to be a tough neighborhood to keep the invasives out. I mean, we've already reviewed a number of properties on the hill here and taken a very close look at the pond there. And in the course of that, you can see that there's an awful lot of stuff crawling up the trees there, a lot of standing dead in the neighborhood. And it's just kind of ripe for lots of invasive species there to be problematic.
Although I did walk, well, not only the client's backyard, but beyond that stone wall where it's wet swamp 1, I walked all along their shared border and about 25 feet in, and I was actually shocked at how few invasives I found. I didn't find any bittersweet. I didn't find any Phragmites. I mean, those are the two that I find most places. I didn't find any invasive honeysuckle. I was really kind of pleased with what I found under there. So I wasn't off put by that. There are places where I wouldn't touch it because there's so many invasives, but
Yeah.
this didn't seem to be one of those.
Yeah, well, as you get closer to Atlantic, it's a little rougher, I think,
Mhm.
if you move in that direction. But yeah, I think this is a really worthy thing to try to get rid of that lawn and put in native plants. Doing the same thing in my yard, fully approve of that.
Charlotte, what is the recourse if plants do not survive 3 years?
And in relation to timing, if the order of conditions is still open, it just wouldn't be compliant. And I would recommend at the time that if it's not being successful, that the applicants would recommend an extension, and we might need to revise the plan. And then if we were closing out the permit and we were in the middle of that time frame, it's pretty much an ongoing condition with the COC. So technically it would still be enforced by us if those plantings aren't surviving. But I'll just say, usually when a COC is closed, it's mostly those conditions are in a monitoring stage rather than like actual activity. So at least with the order conditions, we'd have more of a time frame to really look at it as a commission and see if it's successful. Usually with these types of projects with plantings and mitigation plantings, we've often asked for status updates or reports or whatever it is, usually within a certain time frame. And we can kind of parallel that with our standard condition about the 3 full growing seasons.
So is it possible to condition this that at the end of a period of time, whatever it is, if it's determined that, I don't know, 20% of the plants, 25% of the plants have not thrived, that a new plan has to be submitted?
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely create some sort of threshold, to kind of evaluate the success rate, maybe after the first growing season. And, if that threshold isn't met, then we can say that they'd have to come back with an amended and or a new notice of intent, depending on what they would need to do. But that seems reasonable.
I mean, what I'm aiming at is that if this isn't successful, or if invasives can't be controlled, then we need a fallback on this. This has to succeed, or it's not going to be good. I mean, it's going to be a problem. So, I mean, we need to be able to condition this in a way that basically guarantees success of this.
No, I agree. We can definitely condition the project like that to maybe install, we can condition checkpoints, maybe like after the first growing season, we get a report within a certain time frame. If we don't see that success, the reports, we can condition it of whether or not we want them just submitted to me or presented to the commission. So we can definitely, make those conditions very specific to incorporate certain timeframes and goals and what we want to see, for the success rate.
Then let me ask you a question. Do you intend to mow this area, or will you just let it grow naturally?
Let it grow.
So do you know mowing? Because it looks to me like it's been mowed in the last year or so, because the grass isn't very tall. in the photos, because one of the ways to control invasives is to mow it regularly, obviously.
Right.
That will stop the Phragmites and Japanese knotweed and anything else from coming in. If you intend to leave it without any attention whatsoever, then beware, you're gonna have to be out there probably hand weeding or doing something like that.
But indeed, we're not leaving it without any attention. That's why we're planning on monitoring it for invasives and hand pulling. Just being very careful, get them when they're young and not let them get a toehold. And you're right, it has not been, it was mowed up until November of last year. It has not been mowed since then.
It hasn't grown because it's been so dry.
Well, yeah, this summer was a doozy.
So is the mix annuals and perennials?
No, perennials.
It's all perennial.
Mhm.
So mowing probably is not an option.
No.
Well, I mean, if you wanted to, you could mow in November when everything is, going into dormancy except for the shrubs.
But Tom, there's a lot of grass there now. There's a bed of grass that they'll be planting the perennials into.
Yeah.
Is the entire property going to be left to Mother Nature?
No,
No.
areas outside the 50 and at the back right of that sort of triangular shaped thing, that will be mown as it has been since the 60s. I mean, they have a 2-year-old, and so he'll want some grass to sort of roll around on and that kind of thing. They also want to put in planters. You can see that there's one proposed planter in the 50 to 100. They'd like to put in 3 to grow their own food. They're actually into permaculture, and which brings me to my next request, which Josh knows about. The clients asked if they could add some native trees. They're not native to Cohasset, but native fruit-bearing trees in the 5200, like pawpaw and persimmon. High bush blueberries, they should be native to Cohasset, but they weren't on your list. Raspberries, that kind of thing, because they actually do want to try to grow quite a bit of their own food. They have a permaculture sort of aspect to the property. Nothing leaves, no chemicals.
Well, I mean, that should all show on the plan. And as should the limit of, unless what you're showing is the limit of the area that's going to be unmowed, so to speak.
I believe that is the intention.
That's
But
the
correct me if
intention.
I'm wrong, but
Mhm.
So the idea is that you're going to mow down at between this and the stone wall?
No,
no, not back behind it. I can move that buffer to go to it. It was more
Yeah, I mean,
illustrative.
you just have to be a little more specific. Proposed additional buffer, I'm not sure what that is.
That's just a category. We need to put a name to it, but that's highlighted up here as the upland additions. It's in the narrative. So that's this section of plants.
Okay.
So those are so they're hatched to show what category is the
I
area.
see. Okay.
Okay.
and Josh, we need to ask
What
about the
what
privacy.
was the third category? I'm sorry. Where was the third one?
Privacy plantings are up front here. I mentioned it when we went up there. I'd forgotten when I went through it the first time, but simply to give a screening between the backyard and the road, and I'll go back up so you can see the plants as well.
Tell me, it sounds to me you want to have a vigorous fruit and vegetable operation here. Do you have the sunlight to do this? Because this is very heavily wooded. You talk about permaculture and growing and all that, and that requires good sunshine on a continuous basis.
There are a couple of spots where they will be able to grow food.
Where are they?
Well, out of jurisdiction to the left of the house. The front yard has a couple of big oaks, but they have really good sun right in front of the house. And just to the front right, which is within the 50 to 100. Also at the back right, which is between the 0 to 50, that's fairly sunny back in there. just to the left of where that broken tree is, the split tree.
So you're talking about putting non-native plants in the buffer in some parts, aren't you?
Only the privacy planting.
Well, you just talked about the north end of the property there that I thought. Maybe
You asked where there was sun. So that's what I answered, but where they would like to put their planters are actually in between the 50 to 100. They would be raised bed planters. And there is one shown that's sort of a dark rectangle. Josh, can you circle that with your cursor?
Yep, that was just meant to show the area that they were doing it.
Yep.
Can't get many tomato plants in there.
I'll expand it.
Well, there's going to be more sun there when those trees are
The
cut
trees
down.
are out, correct. And ironically, they did have tomato plant, that's an existing planter, tomato plants in there, and were victims of hornworms this summer. So that was interesting.
Who has hornworms? I don't.
Their tomato plants did. They were skeletized over like 48 hours.
Gotta learn how to grow them.
Any questions on deck itself?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna recommend that we continue this hearing, that the plan is updated to show a hard line for where the planting is going to start and stop, and how it's going to be, how that area is going to be unmanaged. I think in the meantime, Charlotte and I and Eric, we can work on a couple conditions that make sure that there's recourse if something goes awry in this area. And then it'll give us one more time to take a look at it and see if there's anything else that catches our eye and causes a problem.
Okay.
I would add one thing, Chris, I'd like to say. I strongly support the return to nature of this bed here. But I would just like, if possible, the owners could just consider, all right, making it into a fully restored buffer zone area, all right, which means probably turfing and taking it out and starting from scratch and doing something really luxurious and beautiful, because that's what it's going to take to make this a robust buffer zone restoration project. But I wish they would consider that, at least, instead of just letting the grass grow.
Well, we had discussed sort of like the spectrum of what we could do, but what we did not want to do was do a buffer zone creation, because then it moves all of their buffer zones completely to the other side of the property. And so it gives them, less control over that, which they could do. Because you'd move all your buffer lines.
Well, you're suggesting that in this planting, you would turn this buffer into a wetland. Is that
No,
what you're saying?
no, we're basically saying, leave it alone, but make it attractive and add some stuff in there. That
No,
would be great for
understood.
pollinators,
But
right?
why would the buffers move if it were more of a buffer zone restoration?
But if we create a wetland and
Oh,
actually
well, that's what I
wetland
said.
planting,
You're concerned you're going to be
then
creating.
we're going to be moving our buffers, right?
Right, yes, okay, true,
And they have a small enough lot as it is.
true. Okay. Are we sure this isn't a wetland with grass on top?
We had it delineated by Brad Holmes of ECR.
When was that done?
Late November of last year.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think just looking at the NOI narrative, it says on review of the site, the wetland scientist noted that portions of the lawn were wet. This is likely due to roadway runoff and roof drain sump pump discharges being directed to the area. So that's why the lawn, at least according to the wetland scientist, had, was wet during certain times of the year.
This is within a foot or so of elevation of the wetland itself, 1 to 2 feet. So I really wonder about that theory that he's got.
Yeah, I think, Josh, I think I asked this question, but did Brad Holmes did he take his auger and do any hydric soil sampling in the wet lawn area?
I will ask, I'll have that for the next meeting.
Okay.
I know we did ask him when you and I were talking about it, but I forget exactly what he sent me with the report.
We probably should have a signed and sealed report from him.
Yeah.
This reminds me of 12 Hobart Lane, where the wall becomes the edge and not the actual wetland.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Yeah, the signed and sealed document would help here. Obviously, he's not going to find many wetland plants since it's been used as a lawn, but
yeah, it's been mowed and they put chemicals on it, Tom. It's been treated and run into the ground over the years.
Yeah.
Actually, the previous owner didn't chemically treat the property. She was quite the native gardener.
I know the previous owner.
Ah, okay,
Good friend.
good. She did a lovely job.
So let's continue to September the 8th with the idea that you will bring back plan revisions as noted today, and we will look to have, assuming that everyone's in agreement to vote on this, then we'll have an order of conditions ready for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good to us.
Okay. We'll
Thank
see
you all.
We'll see you on the 8th. Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Guys.
Thank you.
Okay, our last hearing this evening is continuation of NOI 22-11 and Stormwater Permit 22-06 for 46 Border Street.
Mr. Chairman, can I
Yes.
ask for a 5-minute comfort break, please? or if you want, I'll take a comfort break and you go ahead.
No, we don't want to go ahead without you, Eric. Go ahead. Let's take 5.
5 minutes, please.
Great.
Adam, I think I have everyone, but let me know if I'm missing anyone.
Thank you, Charlotte. We need Susan and Corinna, Gabe Padilla. You have Eamon O'Mara, and I saw Mr. Sullivan.
Perfect. Thank you. That was the last one. Hi, Rustam, you still there? Did you have a question? We're on a 5-minute break right now, just for the last hearing. You're muted.
Now, can you hear me?
Hi, yes.
Hi. I just wanted to say hello to Mr. Brodsky, Adam Brodsky, who's there.
What's up there?
Adam, how are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you doing?
Good. Nice to see you there. Haven't seen you in a while.
It's usually a good thing when I don't show up.
Well, thank you. Just wanted to say hello. Thank you, Charlotte. Appreciate it.
No problem. Saw your hand raised. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm all set, Chris.
Lost Tom too. We got to give Tom a minute.
Okay. It looks very vacant at his place.
Yes.
Adam, I'm trying to promote Eamon O'Mara. I don't know if maybe they're just away from their screen, but just trying to promote them as well. Oh, there they are.
Thank
Perfect.
Okay, let's go.
Zach. Okay. Whomever would like to speak on behalf of the applicant, please do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Brodsky. I'm an environmental and land use lawyer representing the applicant Co Lobster LLC. You know the team by now. We work for Tom Sullivan, the manager of the LLC. Eamon O'Mara is our project manager. Susan Hoadley and Karina Martinez are architects. Gabriel Padilla is our professional engineer, and Nino DeNuno, who also joined, is our contractor. And we have assembled what we believe to be is all the additional information that was requested by the Conservation Commission so that we may be in a position this evening to potentially close the public hearing and have the commission issue its decisions on the 2 permit requests. There are updates to the operation and maintenance plan for our drainage system, additional sketch showing details regarding the construction entrance, additional information regarding our lighting plan and specifications for the lighting, as well as a construction methodology that was prepared by Nino. And each of the professionals are here to answer any questions you may have. Gabe can certainly address the O&M plans, as well as the construction details and the lighting. And again, Nino is available if you have questions regarding the construction methodology. And Susan and Karina have general control over everything else. So we're available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you, sir.
Well, I'd just like to start. My big concern on this project is that things do not fall into the harbor, being the resource area immediately adjacent to this project. I reached out to Charlotte after seeing the first round of application on this, which had a net, but it didn't show any like how this net was going to be suspended, and it also talked about having a 3.5-inch opening to it. And so I'm hoping that some light could be shed on that a little bit.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and Nino can address that. There was some additional information within the narrative that may not have been clear that Nino can expound upon. And I believe we provided some additional information at the request of the agent this afternoon. Okay. So Nino, do you want to speak to that issue, or I can defer to Susan Carino, I believe submitted the revision to plan sheet C101.
You're muted if you're talking.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening. I could talk about that. Is it possible to share my screen just to show a little bit more on that netting?
Yeah, please.
Nino, is there something that perhaps Gabe or Susan Carina can put up on the screen for you?
I mean, they could put up the construction methodology statement, but I actually pulled up a little bit more information from the manufacturer's website that showed how it attached, and then you're able to zoom in on it. I don't know why it's not.
It seems that Miss Hoadley has her hand up. She must have the information.
I don't. Hello, my name's Susan Hoadley. It's nice to be in front of the commission tonight. I would like to maybe introduce a diagram that we produced that gives a good overview for what Nino will be going into more detail with. If you want to give me maybe 2 minutes to go over that, maybe Nino, you can continue to try to find that.
Yeah,
And
thank
I
you.
can just go into the detail part of it. Great. So with permission, I'd like to put up the diagram called C101. Does everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, good. So what C101 is simply a site protection diagram. But what it also shows that I think will be meaningful to talk about tonight is the difference between terra firma and what are actually piers. So when you look at this diagram, you'll see this sort of funny puce color. And that is literally the firm ground or terra firma. And then when you look at to the right and at the top of the drawing, you see this other area. And those are the only area of piers that have been identified by the structural engineer. So this gives you a really good idea of the fact that this pier really is on solid ground with just a peripheral treatment of piers. Now, if you put a pin in that just for a moment, what I'd like to do is show you just how minimal the interior existing structural elements are that we plan to remove. And those are the yellow areas, okay, which the mouse is showing. So it shows that this is really truly a remodel and renovation. And I think this drawing goes far to show that most of this area is on terra firma and the demo is actually very minimal. The next thing that I'd like to draw your attention to is the various methods of protection that we have devised. The first one is a safety and debris net in pink, which Nino will, it's an outrigged system that's actually used in the city for applications where you have skyscrapers where things cannot fall onto live bystanders below. So that Nino will talk about it more, but where you see that pink area, there will be that sort of protection. The second type is vertical protection tarps, where the mouse is shown here. So as you know, that's an outrigged walkway. So there will be tarps on the ground and then vertical protection, creating a scoop that goes up the railings to contain all of the debris, hardware, and other things that come off of any demolition or repair that happens in the course of renovation. Finally, we are proposing an open water debris containment boom, which will go out around the whole periphery of our scope of work. And we are also showing a wood chip compost blend, so Excelsior silt sock. And that is shown in the orange line that the mouse is showing, and is shown in more detail on the civil layout plan. So with that, Nino, are you ready to show the
I
details?
think I can. It's telling me I can't do it. Well, hang on 1 second.
We can put up, okay.
Yeah, it for some reason it's not letting me get off of the Zoom screen to go to my browser screen.
So Nino, maybe I could just ask you the question that I had.
Just put it up.
Mhm.
When the last submittal that I saw showed a net with a 3.5 inch opening built out of a 1 inch, a 1/2 inch cord or rope.
Right.
Or cable or whatever it is. Not
and-
actually, I think it's at a polypropylene, whatever. Okay.
Yeah, yep.
My,
And that's,
my concern is that there's a lot of debris potential. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there's debris potential that could fall through a 3.5 inch opening.
sure. And
So-
that's what the,
So all I'm asking is there another layer that could actually catch things like broken glass,
yes,
small,
yeah.
small nails and screws and hardware, things that potentially could fall off a roof and end up in the harbor?
Absolutely. And if anybody could pull up that memo that has the image of the outrigged protection, that's actually, the description was about 50% of what it does. There's a second layer. Yep, that bottom left, if there's any way to zoom in on that. A little bit more, maybe. So if you can see where the outrigger comes up, and then you see the darker black, and then you see the swoop down. So the swoop down is that 3.5 inch netting, and that's meant more to catch a body than anything.
Yes.
That second layer that you see sort of in a straighter line going back to the building is a fine mesh tarp. So I after a lot of research and exploring different options, I mean, I just thought if this is good enough to stop a nail from dropping 300 feet and, hurting somebody, it's must be the best option for this application.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, can I ask a couple questions?
Yes, please.
Okay, so these outrigger systems are only as good as their connection to the building. So is there a structural analysis of where you're going to connect them to the building so they don't fall if something heavy falls on them?
Yeah, they would be attached at the lowest point possible, and they bolt into the building, and then the outriggers sort of drop down and suspend. So we would make sure that they were fastened to a sill plate, or if it had to be up higher, the sill of a window. But you have to sort of create this continuous barrier around the building. So if we needed to add something, on the inside to shore up the structure, that it would, similar to framing brackets, you'd nail a 2x4 in between the 16 on center studs. You drop the framing bracket in, and it's, screwed into that 2x4 that's spanned across several other framing members to provide stability.
And that's excellent. And then the second question is, I thought I heard something about a vertical tarp system, which we also use in Boston all the time on these type of projects, that multiple floors above where the steel erection is going on, you surround the whole floor. And is that what the plan is? Do you have some cut sheet on that shows? Because that's even better than this.
Well, I don't know how we would install something like that on the, entire back and right side of the building. That was more for the area where there's already an established sort of walkway, knee wall condition that we could simply place against the outside wall, along with tarps on the existing walkway. And that way we would contain the debris from, whatever we were doing on the roof or any areas on that side of the building. So that was sort of the other, method on the side of the building where the outriggers wouldn't be ideal.
Okay.
So I'll just mention that the other question I had to do with lighting. I did review the information that was sent and happy with that. Does anyone else in the commission have questions or concerns that they would like responded to?
Mr. Chair, my only comment would be that some sort of frequent monitoring of the protection system, just because stuff like that can, be damaged at any time. So if that's some sort of condition we could add.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Any questions on the stormwater permit? Anything from the audience? No? Okay. Well, having no more questions by the commission, I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing and to issue, we're going to start with the stormwater permit, issue stormwater permit 22-06 for 46 Border Lane. Do I have a second?
Second.
Having a motion and a second to issue a stormwater permit for 46 Border Street. We'll take a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisner, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 5-0. I'd like to make a motion to issue an order of conditions for NOI 22-11 for 46 Border Street with the following conditions: that special condition number 1, the construction contractor shall employ all necessary means as specified on the drawing and per industry standards to eliminate debris and dust from entering the resource area. Failure to do so will result in immediate cease and desist order with associated penalties. Special order of condition 2, this project has been presented to us with the idea that all work is being done above the existing timber structure. And that's what it's being voted on with that understanding. So any modifications to the construction that require work below the timber structure that may include disturbance to the buffer zone, filled tidelands or resource area, especially the replacement and rehab of structural footings and piers, requires a new NOI application, hearing, and order of condition. And special order of condition number 3 would be that weekly the resource area should be inspected at low tide to identify and remove any debris that has bypassed one of the controls and entered the area. If debris is found repeatedly or in bulk in one area, the construction contractor shall review the containment system and remediate to eliminate any further bypass. And Charlotte, I'm hoping that somehow we can make sure that you're part of a review process as Will suggested, so that we have frequent monitoring of the
Yeah, can we add like a clause to that sentence in there that if we wanted to do the weekly monitoring of the resource area should be inspected with the contracting team and the conservation agent? We can make that a thing if we want me to be actively involved, just so it's in there in writing.
That's perfect. Thank you. Lastly, while this is not in our jurisdiction, I'd just like to call attention to order of condition number 34, which clearly states that all required permits from local, state, and federal agencies are obtained before construction begins, and urge our building inspector to verify that Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection has reviewed the project to determine Chapter 91 requirements.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, is that another condition in addition to 34?
That is not a condition. It's just, I'm just noting that it is we do have a condition that say these things need to be in effect.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Having a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions for NOI 22-11
We'll take a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisenhower, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, I.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 500. And lastly, we need to issue a variance to work within the buffer and within the resource area. Well, no, we're not actually, we're above the resource area, so in the buffer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Having a motion and a second to issue a variance to work within the buffer. We'll take a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisenhower, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, I.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 500. Thank you.
Thank
very
you
much.
very much for all of your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all your effort.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. It's great to work with you.
Likewise.
It's gonna be a great project. Thank you.
Looking forward to it.
Charlotte,
Y'all
shall I
are. Thank you.
remain on?
That was good. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlotte.
Or we appreciate your time.
Charlotte.
Our next item to look at is minutes from our last hearing on August the 11th. Does anyone have any comments for the minutes?
No.
Is everyone satisfied they had time to review and
Yes.
vote? Okay, then I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes from August 11th, 2022. Do I have a second?
Second.
Having a motion and a second to approve the minutes from August 11th, 2022. We'll take a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisenhower, aye.
Kathy Berrigan.
Abstain, I nodded off. At the-
Okay.
I heard.
Fair enough. And Chris McFarland, yay. So that vote passes 401. Is that right? 401.
Yes, 401. Yeah.
Boy, we don't have a healthy commission here. Okay, next item on the agenda are 2 certificates of compliance.
Sure.
Charlotte, I'll give it to
So
you.
we have Adam representing the applicant, Ted Lewis, just to be here for any questions. So I'll just do 44 Border Street first. So this is NOI 18-12. I did a final inspection last week. Just quick question. Does anybody want me to go through the brief history of this project, or you guys remember it all?
No.
No, so that's a no. Okay. So this order of conditions had, of course, our standard boilerplate, but we did have some conditions that I just kind of want to clarify. So I'm just going to go through, since a lot of the boilerplate conditions actually do apply to this project. So the first one was from the original order of conditions. We had a special condition saying all work associated with this project must be completed by December 31st, 2019. That was amended with an amended order of conditions to change it to May 1st, 2021. So just wanted to clarify that. And then, since we all know the pandemic happened, well, still kind of happening, but at least state of emergency is over. That condition did receive, it did apply to the COVID tolling provision extensions as confirmed with legal counsel. So the deadline for this condition would have been changed to June 22nd, 2022. I confirmed with Adam and Ted that the work was done before that date. So they were in compliance with that special condition. Another special condition, which was added, number 54, this was with the amended order of conditions that we issued in 2019, that a third-party engineer shall be hired at the applicant's expense to periodically perform oversight services during the course of the project. This report was submitted by Merrill Engineering, and just for the record, this was before Merrill had absorbed Cavanero, so no conflict of interest at the time. So this was the report that had been submitted. They visited the site in June of last year, where the riprap stone was removed, the footing was in place, the contractors were there working the course of the stone blocks during low tide conditions. The float booms were in place, and a lot of other work was occurring. So when the third-party engineer was there, all work was occurring above the mean low water line, not past that, that mark. And then they visited the site again in the fall, same year in September. I was actually at this one, and the seawalls at the time were complete. The boom was removed. The concrete wrap and railing were all removed, and really all they had left was they were waiting on patio pavers, which did take a while to come in. I think they came in the spring of 2022. The seawall near all the existing steps is reviewed. No major repairs were needed, according to the third-party engineer. The portion of the existing pavement behind the seawall was removed during construction and will be replaced when the patio pavers were installed. An as-built was prepared by Cavanero in 2021, October, right after this. There were a couple minor things where 2 mooring rings noted as eye-bolts were located on the plan. And then the engineer provided a lot of pictures. So this was I believe this was the June visit. So this is during low tide conditions, where you can see them working on repairing the seawall and removing all the riprap that was and below the seawall. So they were taking that out, working the silt boom pretty much delineated for the most part the mean low water line. So they were working all below that and repairing the wall. So she took several pictures. I don't know if anyone looked at this, but I can kind of just keep scrolling through them. A lot of the equipment was obviously above, working from there as well. And then I'll scroll down to the September photos. So this was in September. We weren't there during low tide exactly. The tide was coming in during that day, but you can see that the seawall had been repaired with the concrete bulkhead. And then she took just pictures of what that looks like now. Really all they were waiting for was the patio pavers. So it was gravel at the time. So there's gravel technically underneath the bluestone patio pavers for infiltration. These are just the conditions that were in September. So based on this report, it was the third-party engineer's opinion that the work was in compliance with working below the mean low water line during low tide conditions to minimize any siltation, into the harbor as best as possible. And so those were her reports. And then this was the as-built that was made October 21 to just kind of clarify that. And then, does anyone have any questions about the third-party report? Before I keep going? No. Okay. And so, sorry, just keep going here. One of the other conditions that is kind of relevant to this project is the condition 34 that the chair mentioned with the last project, that all other required local, state, federal permits must be obtained for this project. These approvals must be submitted to the Conservation Commission. So I did receive the Chapter 91 license from the applicant. This one was actually from 1960. I talked to Adam, the third-party engineer, and DEP about the license, and they all said it's valid for the work that was performed with the order of conditions. The use is outside of the commission's jurisdiction as confirmed by legal counsel, so restaurant use would be a different matter outside of this board. And so the license also from 1960 at the time did not have an expiration date. So I confirmed that with Adam and DEP as well. So as far as, we're aware the number 34 special condition was complied with. And then
Charlotte, can I clarify, please? From
Sure.
discussion with council.
Sure.
The 1960 license for Chapter 91 was for a wharf and a store building.
Mm-hmm.
And council has said that in our jurisdiction,
Mm-hmm.
what was rebuilt was a wharf and a building.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the building wasn't even part of it. It was just the wharf.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, that's where our jurisdiction ends.
Mm.
But whether or not the use is still valid is outside of our jurisdiction.
Correct. Yeah.
It goes to the building and zoning. And they have to follow up on that if they have concerns for it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. No, thank you. That's really helpful. Thank you
And
for
Mr.
clarifying.
Chairman, I just want to remind you that DEP specifically issued a minor modification of that license for the repairs. And you also have that information. So there was a minor mod.
Okay. Was that given to the building inspector?
Yes, the town has that.
Okay. I can get that from him then. Just so that we have that for our record, because I have the 1960 plan with the site plan that was given to me. But I probably wasn't, at least I wasn't, I don't know if the previous agent was given it, but I wasn't given the minor modification. So.
Yes, there's a long history here and consultations with Jeff Summers and Steve Ivis regarding all of these issues.
Okay, all right, I can get that then. And then, you know, from prior correspondence that I've seen from the building inspector, Mr. Brodsky, and the previous agent, you know, they did have an on-site construction meeting. I can confirm that the work started May 17th, 2021. That just leads me to one of the conditions that we have, which is in our boilerplate about, you know, any special conditions from NHESP and or MADMF shall be strictly followed as part of the order conditions. So initially, DMF had sent us a letter in 2018 for the original project, just giving time of year incursions. And they originally had some restrictions where the May 17th date wouldn't have been allowed. But after looking at an email sent by DMF to Adam Brodsky, they said that they were okay with the start date being May 17th, as long as the work occurred in low tide conditions to reduce siltation into the waterway. And based on the third party review, it looks like that was done. So that's just to show that they did comply with DMF's recommendations and that DMF was okay with that start date. They had a few other recommendations that were also listed on that letter, but they are not necessarily requirements for DMF, and DMF would look into that separately, but at least with the time of year incursion, they definitely were okay with that start date. And then the last thing was any approved work within the resource area must be done during low flow conditions. That's another one of our standard conditions. So again, looks like the work did appear to be done during those timeframes, as shown by the peer review report that Merrill Engineering submitted. So at least in terms of when I did my site inspection, I did notice just a few things that I'll just note for the record, that there was a slight reduction in the existing impervious parking lot, and there was a gravel stone edge that was added to either side of the parking lot and actually around the patio. I can show pictures real quick just so you guys can see what that looks like. So these are the photos that I took. Let me just scroll through them real quick. The loading. Hold on. Come on. All right, so as you can see, the existing concrete area had been repaved for parking after construction, and they added this gravel, you know, edging around the top left corner of the parking lot and along the right side of the parking lot. So there's not an exact number that's on the as-built plan, but the applicant estimated it to be about a 200 square foot reduction in impervious from the existing paved parking area. So the, you know, minor reduction, but that's a good thing on our end. And then the gravel edging was also installed around the bluestone patio for additional drainage purposes. And they installed these little planter beds along the parking lot and as you can see from the photos here, along the patio as well. And then that was mostly it for deviations. Does anybody have any questions so far with any of these photos, reports, or conditions? No? Yes, okay. So if a COC were to be issued, the order conditions, a lot of those conditions applied specifically to the construction. So I would say that most of them aren't really applicable. I'm happy to pull it up if the commission would like to see them. The only condition that we've been issuing with all COCs is just the use of no herbicides, pesticides, et cetera. It's not applicable to this project, but I did want to question if the commission just wanted me to issue that as a standard, since it's a standard boilerplate condition. I mean, they don't have any plantings in that area. It's all impervious and pervious, you know, area, but I don't know if we want to be consistent or if we just want to say it's applicable to only certain projects with plantings or lawn area. That was really the only condition that was applicable, at least afterwards.
I don't think we need to include it.
Okay, cool. But that was it. I did send a handful of questions to Mr. Brodsky, to Ted Lubitz, and to the engineers. They did address all of those. There was a slight just question I had about any of the rock material that was at the bottom of the seawall, which was not from the project. And Steve Ivis said that that was okay. So that was my only question that didn't relate to the order conditions. It was mostly just the work. But other than that, all my conditions were, or all the conditions that I saw were complied with.
Without any questions, I'll make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for the NOI 18-12 at 44 Border Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
Having a motion and a second to issue a certificate of compliance for NOI 18-12 at 44 Border Street. We'll take a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisner, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 5-0. Thank
Thank
you.
you again. Good night.
Thanks, Adam. Have a good night.
You're welcome.
Good night.
All right, the second one is a lot shorter, so apologize. So 72 North Main, this one was a dock project. This is NOI 20-22. So I can be really quick with this one. There was only one special condition that actually I'm going to recommend as an ongoing condition. It's the seasonal ramp and floats are to be stored at a suitable upland location outside of all protected resource areas. This is actually in our rules and regulations. I'm actually wondering if we should just add this to our template, but we can have a conversation about that later. But in terms of other conditions that related, no heavy equipment, vehicles, barges were permitted on the resource areas. The contractor who did the dock work, I was here a couple times, did not see any of that heavy equipment. They kept the compressor for the pneumatic hammer and tripod all above the salt marsh. So no equipment to my knowledge was there. And they don't use barges. The other condition is construction of the pier may be accomplished from a barge or boat operating in at least 2 feet of water. The barge or boat shall not be permitted to ground out at low tide. They didn't use a barge for this project. They mostly do the work with the tripod pneumatic hammer, and they install most of the deck and the railings and everything else from the already built dock. The only deviation with this project is what you can see right here. Instead of a ramp, they put 2 stairs. It's because the owner recommended this to the contractors that they didn't disturb the lawn area. I don't know if I'm allowed to comment on the building of it, but it's not on the grass as previously permitted or what was allowed. So this is really the only deviation. I actually did have a conversation for the commission's reference to just talk to the engineer about putting more measurements on the as-built, because this is the second time I've gotten an as-built with no measurements on it. So I did all the measurements myself in the field, which I don't mind doing, but I would prefer to see them on an as-built. So the same set of pilings were installed per plan, and the distance, the measurements, the width was all previously approved. So no deviations there except for these stairs. So the only condition. Sorry.
Do we have a condition at all about treated wood?
So we used to. It was removed from the template at some point between 2020 and 2021. We had something like no ACQ wood, I think, or I'm forgetting the acronyms. But yeah, there was a condition that we had previously in our old template. We can put it back on if we like, but it's not on this current template.
I see no
Like,
reason.
I defer to Tom Bell on that. He might know better than I do, but
The wood, you mean?
yes.
You know, they've changed the formulation for treated wood. I don't believe it contains arsenic anymore.
Oh, that was it. Yeah.
Right.
It was something like no arsenic treated wood is allowed,
Right.
and then something else was okay.
Right. I think
Yeah.
I think the new pressure treated lumber is, they've removed a lot of the bad stuff. Copper was one of them. Arsenic was certainly one of them.
So it's now A-OK, Tom?
Well, I wouldn't want to say one way or the other because I don't really know quite enough about it, but it certainly makes sense for the homeowner. We don't want people falling through these things, see them rot away in 5 years and lose somebody through the planking here.
So I'm less concerned about the planking and more concerned about the wood that's going into the salt marsh.
Yeah. Well, you can see that, obviously that those piles, you can see that kind of bluish color around them. I'd be inclined to think that those probably have copper in them.
Yeah.
Probably.
Well, Charlotte, I'm going to ask you to reach out to DEP and see if they have
Okay.
any information for us on that.
Sure.
They'd probably know better and could advise us, I think.
Okay. That actually, I mean, yeah, and another conversation, I would like to kind of revisit the special conditions template. So if we do want to put any of those conditions back on, that would be a great opportunity because we added some that were great, but then we took away some where I was like, oh, why did we take those off? I don't know. It's before I was here. But yeah, the only condition I'd recommend for this one, which is applicable, is the seasonal ramp and floats are to be stored at a suitable upland location outside of all protected resources.
Yep.
All right.
Make a motion to accept the certificate of compliance for NOI 20-22 at 72 North Main Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
Having a motion and a second, we'll take a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bill, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisner, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda, we're going to jump down to reports from the agent. Charlotte, I'm going to ask you to absolutely only tell us about problems that people might be interested in looking at or understanding.
Okay, so at least these were the ones from my last list. Looking at the agenda is 63 Nichols, 80 Howe, 24 Atlantic Ave, 87 to 124 Elm, 225 Sawyer and Sawyer Street sidewalk. Does anybody have any concerns about any of those?
I saw them paving Sawyer Street today. I hope it's decent.
Yeah, I need to check that site again because I would like to see them kind of resurvey the town right away. Some stakes have fallen down over the course of construction, the barriers getting beat up. And so I reached out to DPW I told them about the erosion control, but now I kind of want to tell them, I think we should resurvey the right of way just to try and minimize any additional disturbance before they start paving the sidewalk. So that would be my recommendation for that one. Does anyone else have any other concerns? We're
Nope.
still waiting on a report about the trees. So Chris, from our first walk, I still need that report. And then we asked for a 5-year report, which we'll get in the future.
I don't have any concerns, but I do just as a point of interest in the future. You know, they use that small trap rock to stabilize slopes and such. It's couldn't be uglier.
Yeah, it's on the plan, but
I never thought that's what it was going to be. I thought it was going to be
No.
a bigger boulder that actually might have a decent aesthetic to it. So
Yeah, it's not what I pictured it would look like.
we can only hope a lot of Virginia creeper will crawl over it.
Yeah, exactly. Did anyone else have any other concerns about the ones on the agenda? Because Elm Street is definitely happening now. I inspected erosion controls. I made them move portable toilet further away from James Brook. That's a condition to the order of conditions. They have a few other things that they have to do for me, but for the most part, they're now minor. I'm just going to be driving by that site very frequently. So if anybody sees anything, just let me know because I'm going to be there a lot. And I know all the contractors, I have all their numbers and cell phones. So that's going to be a big one. Pleasant Street, sorry, this one's not on the list, but One Pleasant Street has also, or Two Pleasant Street, One Pleasant, yeah, One Pleasant has also started. So I inspected the catch basin silt sacks and erosion controls. So that one's very caged, which is good. A lot of big projects that are happening right now, but yeah, Nichols, I inspected the driveway during low tide. I did not see any rubble or anything falling into the marsh, so that's good. They are planning to finish in the fall. However, I do have a 48-hour issue if nobody has any other questions.
Well, I just comment that, you know, all of our construction on Howe Road.
I've just been there two times this week.
They totally ignore their you know.
Actually, I can, I'll give you guys an update on that one since 80 Howe is tied to pretty much all of those. So I went there twice this week, looked at all the erosion controls. The only one that's in decent shape right now is 3 Diab because they had recently updated erosion controls a few months ago. With 80 Howe, I'm having a somewhat difficult conversation with the contractors because they think they're done. I'm like, no, you're not done. You have to update the barriers. So I'm having them remove the green flattened one and replacing it with a brand new black one. And for now, I haven't heard from the owner about whether or not they can get a base coat in there. They're still waiting on bids and contractors. So I was like, can you at least add more gravel to the driveway to stabilize it so we don't have a mudslide? That was my recommendation. So I would like to see that happen. And then 9 and Diab, I talked to the contractor, 9 and 15, excuse me, 9 and 15 Diab, I talked to the contractor yesterday. The construction entrances are totally beat up. So I'm like, you need to fix that now. The barriers need to be redone in those areas. There is a massive pile of rubble from the the chipping that they did at 9 Diab. Once they pour the rest of the foundation for 9, they're going to clear all that rock out of there. So I told them you need to get all that out. Part of it's also on 3, which is a different owner. So they need to clear that, get it all out of the way. And I'm going to inspect the site after that happens because there did look like there was some disturbance with the tree protection line. So until they take away all the rock, I need to see what it looks like. So they're fixing the barriers for that, and they're going to get the rock out hopefully within the next week. And then 102 Howe, this one is messy. So their barriers need to be replaced around the wetland area, along the driveway, along either side of the driveway. And they also have rubble up on the upland side right behind the house. So I told them you have to get all of that out right now. So I'll be frequently looking at that one. I'm going to call the contractors tomorrow. So they have to clean up that site. The house is built at 102 Howe for the most part. They still have to obviously put in the driveway, the infiltration chambers, and obviously, you know, regrade everything. But for the most part, the major work is done because they did blasting on that one for the house foundation. So that site is also messy. So they need to clean all those up ASAP. If they don't do them within a certain time frame, in my opinion, I've told them you will get a cease and desist letter with a show cause hearing. So they do have to clean those up, in my opinion, quickly.
You know, there's been an awful lot of damage to the, you know, you talked about the tree line. They've been really careless, both in bashing into the trunks of the trees, but also tearing up the root walls. I'll be surprised if how many trees actually survived this assault. I mean,
it's really sad, honestly. And a lot of the trees that were a part of the tree protection line were straggly to begin with. So them getting beat up by rock and ledge and everything else, like I think, no offense, we took all the good trees out for all these lots and we're left with all the Norway maples and the straggly ones. I did ask them to put tree guards around the trees to the construction entrances. So I want those further protected. And yeah, any trees they take out, they're going to have to replace them as far as I'm concerned, if they're big enough in caliper per our regulations. So I need to inspect the damage after they take out all of the rock rubble from the chipping.
I think we need to consider when we write order of conditions, when we have trees that are to be preserved, we really need to consider how big that root system is, and at least protect what's under the canopy. But they're right up against the trunk in a lot of places, and of course, you know,
9 and 15, 3, 9, and 15 diab were all stormwater permits, but I would also recommend we can definitely issue conditions with the stormwater permit as well if we have any concerns. So you know, that's something to consider. You know, because the only thing in our bylaws is that 12-inch caliper or greater need to be marked on the plan. But if we did have concerns about any large tree specimens that are surveyed on the plan, we could potentially condition the same thing where the trees can be native. We've seen that on some site plans before. So it's not that, you know, we're not allowed to issue conditions of stormwater permits, but something to consider, I guess, for especially undeveloped lots like these. Yeah, they're definitely messy sites, definitely trying to stay on top of them. But yeah, they need to.
Ocean Ledge is a real mess.
Ocean Ledge. Oh, I was there earlier this week. The barriers looked okay, and they had replaced one of them in the front with the construction entrance, but the trees, they cleared everything, you know, inside the barrier for now. But yeah, I'll keep an eye on that one too.
Did you walk on that surface out there?
On the surface, like in the woods, or
No,
where they cut it?
Not in the woods where they've excavated.
In the dirt? No.
You sink up to your ankles in dust.
Okay.
So,
okay.
So as soon as it rains,
okay,
those siltation barriers are going to be totally overwhelmed. If we get a heavy rainfall, the amount of sludge or mud that's going to come off that site's going to.
Okay. They can rough grade it temporarily, so I can ask them to do that. So if they rough grade it, that can also help with slowing down this.
It needs to actually be sprinkled, you know, for dust control. And I mean, it's just a mudslide waiting to happen. We're all hoping for a big rainfall. Well, if that happens, it's going to be messy up there.
Yeah, as much as I want the rain, I'm also worried about the site. So I'm like, I kind of like the drought for that. But I'll take a look at the 10 Ocean Ledge again, and see what it looks like. Anyone else have any sites of concern? No. Okay.
Any 48-hour issues?
Just one. As everyone knows, there is now a complete water ban as of Monday, all non-essential outdoor water use. So basically what that means for us is nobody can plant. I mean, they could technically plant, they just can't water. So it would be pointless. So actually that just brings up the issue that has been, a lot of people have been trying to work with me and John to close out stormwater permits, orders of conditions, to obtain their occupancy permit. Just so everyone's aware, I'm a step in that process, even though I obviously don't issue an occupancy myself. John waits for me to, waits for us as a commission to issue COCs for any of the work before he gives them a certificate of occupancy. So we've been, he's been doing temporaries under the assumption that certain timelines will be, met. And most people, like I can think of 7 or 8 people off the top of my head that were all planning to finish their planting in the fall, 63 Nichols included. But the problem is we can't do anything right now. And the water department, I spoke to them yesterday, they're anticipating this ban to go mostly into the fall. So I can't do anything in terms of the occupancy, but I'll try to see if there's any sort of way that John is open to extending it or doing anything on his end. I mean, again, it doesn't impact me directly, but it does change my timelines for people trying to close out with COCs for us. So everyone's kind of put in a tough spot right now. Nobody can water, nobody can plant, nobody can finish their stormwater permits and orders of condition.
Do you know whether the town is still able to pump the Elms Meadow well, or are we completely on Lily Pond now?
That's a good question. Let me check with them. Because I just asked them what this means in terms of timelines, and they said that they're pretty much in this probably through September, possibly October and November.
I mean, historically, that well goes dry in August.
Okay.
I mean, all the way back to the last century.
Okay. What? Sorry. What?
All the
well?
way back to all the way back to the 19th century. Elms Meadow.
Elms Meadow. Okay.
That Jason, before he left, told me that is where we get most of our water because it's cheap. They don't have to filter it as much as Lily Pond. They have to treat Lily Pond water a heck of a lot more than they do the groundwater.
Okay.
And so when Elms Meadow goes dry, then we're on Lily Pond water. And so obviously costs go up, but it's also an indication that we're starting to really be on the edge of what we can support here.
Okay, yeah, let me check with the water department because now I'm curious. But yeah, they did say it's very dire on their end. They're getting obviously lots of calls.
My well is gushing right now.
Really? You have a private well?
Yeah, I mean, all the houses on the common well, they go back 1850 or so. That was the source of water. So all the houses on the common have, and the well is just overflowing.
Interesting.
What? It's coming out of the ground without being pumped?
No. It's pumped, but there's lots of water.
Oh, okay. I was
going
gonna say, your well turned artesian.
Not coming out without being pumped, I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always confused with private wells. Like we're all going from the same aquifers, aren't we? So like what, I don't know, private wells just always kind of confuse me of why they have different.
I don't think so. There's an aquifer that runs down behind my house.
Oh, okay.
North Main.
Okay.
It goes down and empties out at the post office. And then goes into the harbor.
Okay.
So
I guess it depends on the town.
You are actually in a state mapped aquifer, I believe.
I have no idea.
I'd have to look to be sure. Do you know how deep your well is?
You're a bad thing, Tom.
You know how deep your well is?
No, it's at least 100 years old.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Sorry, I did have one.
The town has almost no idea of how many wells we have, how deep they are, what their static water levels are. We actually know.
They sent interns this summer to do a lot of work on that. Board of Health was working with 2 interns that were doing GIS work and running around trying to locate all the wells. So we've been working on it, or well, the town's been working on it.
You know, the state's not much better when you look at the state database of wells. Couldn't have any more than 2 or 3% of the wells in the whole state in the data. So it's just astonishing to me that we know so little about a resource that we seem to be running out of.
Yeah.
So if you don't know how much you got, how do you know you're running out of it? First, secondly, how do you manage it?
Tom, I think I would manage mine in a closer way if it wasn't running into the harbor. Because that's what happened. It goes in, mine goes into the harbor via the post office.
Well,
On Brook.
yeah, I don't think so. I mean, yeah, ultimately it all ends up in the harbor or it evaporates or whatever. But I believe you're in the recharge area for the Elms Meadow well. All of James Brook feeds that aquifer, the whole watershed there.
Let you and I privately discuss that. I'd like to find out about that.
I'll send you a map.
Good
People have been asking me, should I be pumping my well? And I think it's fine if you're outside of the boundaries of the aquifer, because it does either discharges to a stream or it ends up discharging, the water table would discharge, say, to the Gulf River. And if you're in that situation, you're not really impacting anybody or anything. You might be you might be creating some neighborhood envy. So, you're supposed to have a sign out that says well water.
Yeah.
I do. It's my green lawn.
Yeah.
I'd like to know how many tickets they gave out.
I'll give you a call and we'll discuss it privately, okay?
Okay, sure.
I'd like to know how many tickets they gave out, because you can certainly tell who's watering and who's not.
Yeah, so the policy that they've been doing so far is they see the watering, they tell you to stop. If you don't stop, then they start issuing the fines. So like if they see someone watering their lawn and it's like the first time, if they tell them to stop and they stop, they're okay and they're not going to do fines. But if that person's a repeated offender, or if they ignore the basically stop request, then they're going to start fining them. I think it was like $100 a day or something like that. But yeah, so I don't know. I'm curious. Someone got in trouble for planting hydro seeds. So
drive along Jerusalem Road and Atlantic Road before dawn, and you'll see plenty of automatic.
Oh yeah,
running.
I'm sure.
Some of them are probably unwell. Some of them aren't.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure. Sorry, I did have one last 48-hour issue, which we can just. I'm welcome to discuss this with anyone offline. We have the town meeting, town special meeting is going to be in December of this year. So the deadline for any article revisions is September 16th. I just got it this week, so sorry, I didn't know the deadlines. But at least immediately, if anyone has any urgent concerns about our wetlands protection bylaw or our stormwater management bylaw, we can talk about it. Let me know. Happy to discuss with Chris. But at least since I've been here, I've been kind of coming up with a running list for our bylaws, rules, regulations, mostly towards our rules and regulations, which we can revise at any point during one of our public meetings. So it doesn't need to go to town meeting. The bylaw revisions do. So if anybody in the next couple of weeks sees anything urgent with our wetlands or stormwater bylaws that we want to kind of look at before the deadline, we can talk about it and think about it. I mean, again, I know it's a tough timeline, but just wanted to let everyone know that the deadline is approaching. But if not, then we just have something to think about for next year.
Charlotte, you mentioned that you'd noticed some contradictory bylaws.
Yeah.
And I would think that those should be a priority for us to rationalize.
I've definitely noticed the regulations have a lot of inconsistent information. The bylaws are a little bit more general, and the language is pretty, not vague, but the language is pretty inclusive with what we kind of expect. But again, if we wanted to look at, I know Amy Quessel back in January had said it's weird that your jurisdiction is 25 feet for isolated vegetated wetlands. That's something to look at. Stormwater, 500, 5,000 rule. A lot of people play the numbers game where they can technically alter 4,000 square feet outside of the buffer zones without a permit. Something to consider if we wanted to potentially change that. But until DEP updates the stormwater standards, I don't know if we want to touch the stormwater for now, but just wanted to let you guys know that that is an active thing that I deal with on the permitting side. A lot of people try to play the numbers game where they stay under those stormwater regulations, so they can work on large projects technically if they're not crossing those thresholds. So something to think about. But again, not really urgent on my end, just something that came up. But for wetlands, seems to be pretty solid unless people want to think about anything for isolated vegetated wetlands, which our bylaws protect more than the Wetlands Protection Act, which doesn't acknowledge it at all.
Charlotte, can we, I know we continued some hearings tonight.
Yes.
is it possible that do we have to have a special meeting if we wanted to kind of get together as a group and go through these?
We can set up any public meeting as long as the agenda is posted within 48 hours of the meeting. We could have just an open public meeting to just discuss this on our end. So, if we wanted to kind of think about any revisions to the bylaws and or rules and regulations, as long as we kind of set up a public meeting or do it during one of our scheduled meetings at the end, like now,
Yeah, but
I believe that's okay.
They're always going so late these days. you know?
Yeah.
How
So,
how
I mean,
about,
it's up to
would you
guys.
send that, would you send everyone an email tomorrow and just
Sure.
say, everyone can answer independently without knowing,
Yeah.
would you like to meet? Would you like to be part of the discussion?
Okay.
When might you have time?
Sure.
And then we can maybe set up a meeting, because we've mentioned it before. I'm as guilty as anyone else. I don't have time to be thinking about this stuff. But
It's a lot to
but
think
we
about.
should.
Yeah.
We should, and because there are things that sometimes you think you know what you're saying, and sometimes you don't. It'd be really nice if.
Okay.
we
Yeah.
could- I
Okay.
just, all right.
With the rules and regs, I think it is important that we, at the very least, remove any contradictions.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, Amy Questle recommended we actually start with the regulations. The only reason why I brought up the special town meeting is just because the deadline's approaching. But yeah, I think the regulations definitely need major edits. I'm not so sure about the bylaws. But yeah, I'll send an email to everyone. So if we want to set up any, open meetings just to kind of work through our regulations or bylaws, we can do that in a public meeting setting, just as long as the agenda is posted within 48 hours.
The other thing, Charlotte, and sorry, Eric. I got two things very quickly. First, in your email, please ask people if they would consider having one of the positions on the Conservation Commission, chair, vice chair, secretary, whatever they are. In the past, we've always had liaisons to other commissions. Maybe you could get a list of that together, because I know people have been asking. All right. The other
Sure,
thing,
yeah.
just very quickly, I can't tell you guys how much it pained me to issue the certificate of occupancy for 44 Border Street. This project caused people to resign from the commission. And now, of course, we've lost people like Jay because their terms are up. This was, and I can't say what happened behind the scenes or anything. All I can say is that the 10 interest groups that were part of this project, everyone cared about themselves, and only the Conservation Commission cared about what was going on in the harbor. Even the harbor master told us to get out of the way because she was concerned about the logistics of the harbor. The lobstermen, they wanted us out of the way because their dock, they wanted to make sure they had access to their dock. The owner, he played this game with the Chapter 91 right up to the end. And in fact, he's still playing it because that is not a valid Chapter 91, but he's got a certificate of occupancy and the building permit's done. So no one's ever gonna, DEP has been notified 50 times and they're never gonna do anything about it. The original owner, he was the one who asked for the emergency certification. He dumped 10 tons of rock into the harbor, and then, because his precious restaurant was gonna go sail away, and months later he left with all the rock in the harbor. And then of course the applicant and the contractor went through the back door to basically minimize as much protection as they possibly could. Everyone's looking out for their own interests. The only people that were looking out for the harbor was the Conservation Commission. And so kudos to everyone on the Conservation Commission. Please keep it up in the future. And thank you to those who were on the commission back then who tried. So.
Thank you for the kudos, Chris. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh.
All
right.
Has Chris been sworn in?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, good.
He has good news that he'll share with you guys, which I won't spoil, but yep, so he should be back soon.
And
Tell
we
me how
we
many,
still need it. We still need 2 more people, right?
if
Yeah,
they-
so we are still a board of 7, even though we don't have 7 right now. So I definitely think that, I don't know the town's process. It doesn't seem like it's very, yeah, so maybe like we
very
can be
cryptic.
proactive starting now. If anybody knows people on, with an interest, with a background. Obviously, we would prefer, experts, but we do appreciate any nature enthusiasts or anybody who's honestly willing to be a volunteer on these biweekly hearings that go kind of late. So I tried asking around last minute, but I definitely think we should all be more proactive. So I'll start doing that now, and seeing if anyone has expressed an interest. But also, I'm not local, so I'm in
Well,
Hingham / Franklin,
I
so
mean-
I don't know everyone in Cohasset, even though I mostly do with permitting. But yeah, so if we can work together to find some people in the future for next year, that'll also be great.
Alrighty.
Well, the projects like the 44 Border Street have really caused a lot of people to turn the other way. And commissioners who resign because of that project are spreading the word fast. Don't bother, because it's not appreciated, and everyone's out for themselves. Yeah, you make a difference once in a blue moon, and then you're pushing papers the rest of the time. So
That's life.
yeah, I guess so.
Unfortunately, yes, that's a lesson in life, Chris.
I know Mr. Chemical Company.
Well, this is how we work off our sins too,
Exactly.
I'm atoning for decades of ruin in the wilderness, I suppose, as a mining guy.
So should we? No, I'm just kidding. I was like, should we recruit
If you got any,
developers?
if you have any free time, Tom, I got a lot of roses that need pruning. I gotta go, gentlemen.
We all have to go.
Great meeting. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
So made.
Give a second. Also
Second.
in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you,
Great meeting.
everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Have a great
Bye.
night. Have a good weekend.